Hey there, Eneasz Brodsky. This is Eneasz Brodsky.
Hey, Eneasz Brodsky, this is Eneasz Brodsky.
What the hell is going on here? I'm so confused.
There are the three Junipers playing, whatever, Ultimate Sims. I figured multiple copies, and I hadn't picked this name yet somehow. And there's two Fens.
Yeah,
So,
okay. It works on many levels.
Cloning is a theme in this chapter.
It is. I'm not sure the podcast would be as interesting if it was me talking with me, because I already know all my shit, but
It'd be hard
maybe.
to surprise and deceive yourself.
Exactly.
You definitely would have seen this coming.
I would have, yes. All right, well, what is it that we are doing here when we are not pretending to be the other person?
That's right. This is our podcast, Everything Was a Clue, where you and I sit down for the last time to talk about, at least for the last time to review the book. Speaking of the book, Alexander Whale's web serial, Worth the Candle, available on audiobook and ebook on Amazon and possibly elsewhere.
Yes, there is notes in the show links. No, there's links in the show notes.
Nailed it.
You can click on those. You can buy his stuff. There's also links to his Patreon if you want to support him directly. And there is links to our Patreon if you want to support us. I guess this is the last month that this Patreon will bill. And then, I don't know, we'll put it on pause for at least a while and maybe just discontinue it altogether. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
but
keep the feed alive in your guys' podcatchers. More is coming out at some point. We'll announce it on Discord or something too, but
excellent.
There's more content forthcoming.
Yeah, just not immediately because we both need a break, and I'm going to Burning Man at the end of the month, and then middle of next month I'm going to England. So gonna be a little bit of a hiatus.
Yeah, not just England, Oxford.
That's true.
He wasn't invited to Oxford by someone. But yeah.
I was invited to an abbey very close to Oxford.
Close enough. In fact, it's probably more exclusive.
Right? Because it's only monks are allowed in here.
Yeah. It's that kind of abbey. All right.
Yeah. It's going to be good times.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, looking forward to it for you.
Yeah.
I will also be not doing either of those things, but having a chill, month and a half. So
hell
it's going to be great.
It is. I guess before we get started, I will also say that since I'm going to be at Burning Man at the end of this month and early next month, anyone else that's listening to this, hit me up. Maybe we'll meet at some point. I don't know. I'm going to be camping with Camp Soft Landing, which is over at 945, and I want to say H. I'd have to look it up, and I forgot to do that before we recorded. But you can look up Camp Soft Landing, and I don't know. Just let me know. Maybe we'll meet up someplace.
If anyone's at Burning Man, I guess just first step, message you.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, do we want to get into a few of our meta notes and before we hit the one from the audience thing?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. My first thing is not even anything to do with Worth the Candle or anything else we've done before, but
just the way it should be.
It is about why women kill. I don't know if you have heard of this show or seen this show. I stumbled across it. Oh my God.
I think I saw, is this on Hulu?
No, it's not.
Netflix?
Nope.
Okay, then I don't know what this is. I thought it was one of those ones of here's a bunch of battered women and how they killed people. Part of the justice of that sounds fun, but it just sounds like a really bummer of a show. So
exactly, which is why, if I had known there was a show with this name, I wouldn't even give it a second glance. Right? It sounds terrible. It sounds like one of those documentaries I don't want to watch. But I would have been doing myself a terrible disfavor because I know I was talking a bit about Taika Waititi and his recent projects, including the Pirate Show, Our Flag Means Death, which is a lot of fun and I enjoyed quite a bit. But oh my God. Why Women Kill is just significantly better on every single level. And wow. I mean, okay, so I like Our Flag Means Death. It's very cartoonish. It's very fun. But Why Women Kill is fucking hilarious. I have laughed out loud watching that show many times in ways that I have not laughed out loud for other shows in a long time. Oh, 1 second. Yes? Okay. It was found by my partner, Charlie, and I then walked into the room while she was watching it.
She did the heavy lifting of discovery.
It got discovered. Yeah. She did the original discovery. There, I have corrected the record. Okay. She says she knew I would like it, but she didn't know if I would make time to watch it. And I didn't at first. That's why she was watching it. And I had to stumble into her watching it. But anyways, it's about
three women living in three different decades. A housewife in the 1960s, a socialite in the 1980s, and a lawyer in 2018. Dealing with infidelity in their marriages.
Yes.
So it's great because it sounds like I'm not sold at all. But your
No.
hype is selling me 100%. So,
Dude, I mean, technically it's relationship drama, but in reality, it is high comedy. It is fucking hilarious. They find themselves in the craziest situations. The dialogue is like amazing. This is just really well written. Everyone is a real person, and like you feel for all of them because they get in these situations, and none of them's like an evil asshole bad guy. Well, maybe one guy kind of, but he's got issues. I don't know. The whole thing, like everyone is relatable and fun. There's some parts that are just so fucking sweet. You're like, oh, they're in love. That's amazing. And then there's other parts that are just absolute fucking comedic genius riots. And then every now and then you just get a sucker punch right into your feels. And like, okay, I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't overhype things. I say that sometimes. I don't want people thinking it's the best thing ever, but it's really good. And I would highly recommend it. And the main problem with it, and why probably nobody has seen it, is because it's on Paramount Plus. And nobody has Paramount Plus unless they're already like a big Star Trek fan. So, that kind of sucks. I honestly think this is worth the money to rent from Amazon or YouTube or whatever. Or, maybe take your ethics into your own two hands and sail some high seas to see it. But it's worth your time, definitely. Steven, you know me, right?
Eneasz doesn't like stuff. He doesn't hype stuff at all.
Not only that, but do I binge watch things?
No, it's impossible to get you to watch things.
Well, I watch some things, but I certainly don't like even Harley Quinn, which is my favorite show up until this show. I would still only watch one episode per day. When I found this, I watched 4 episodes in a row.
And they're 46 minutes each, guys. This is, as far as I know, in the years I've known you, unprecedented.
It's every now and then this kind of thing happens. Like Firefly would have done the same thing to me if I could have watched all of Firefly. But I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, man.
Not to hype it too much. It's very enjoyable.
People's take is that, takeaway can be that you thought this was awesome. And for me, that's enough to give it a shot. I will check it out tonight. So
cool. I actually have not seen the first 2 episodes yet because I walked in on Charlie while she was watching episode 3. So I maybe those 2 suck. I'm pretty sure they're amazing though because the other ones are good. But I'm going to go back and watch those, and then I'm just enjoying it.
Hyped. This is going to be great, man.
Mm-hmm.
I got to think of something to plug, show-wise, stuff-wise.
Watch it with Rachel. She'll love it too.
Oh, 100%. I honestly don't really watch any TV by myself.
Oh, okay.
It's, if I'm alone, I'm playing video games usually. So
nice.
I'm trying to think
basically true for me too.
What are we watching? Better Call Saul is wrapping up this season, actually like in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And it's been a great climax so far. So that's that. And there's a show that I think I recommended to you, and it's got to be different than Why Women Kill, but it's a show called Only Murders in the Building.
Oh yeah, you have mentioned that.
Yeah, Steve Martin.
About people trying to do a podcast, right?
Martin Short and Selena Gomez.
Wait, Martin Short and Steve Martin back together again?
I believe so.
Neat.
As long as that is that guy. Let me double check Wikipedia. Yep, that's the one.
Cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's quirky. It's chill, but it's got, like a fun little murder mystery, as the name implies. So yeah, like they want to do like a murder podcast because they think it would be a fun idea. And I think you'll love Selena Gomez's character. She is just like, she has 0 fucks to give like at all. And her awesome. Affect is just like, I don't know, bored millennial the whole time. It's really funny.
Cool.
But yeah, and then they're like, oh, well, no, murder's too general. And like they live in New York. And well, how about only, ones in the neighborhood? Are you kidding? There's like 500,000 people in the neighborhood. All right, only murders in the building. And that's how the name gets or the show gets its name. So yeah.
All right, I might check that out right after Why Women Kill.
I mean, I can't give it as strong of an endorsement, but I've been enjoying it. And season 2 is wrapping up here soon. So
cool.
Yeah. All right, man.
All right, well, let's jump into the actual stuff.
Oh, wait, you've got another unorganized... It's not quite part of a feedback here.
Oh, yes. Okay, right. I have been convinced that we have been... the term slave species has been a distraction. Some sufferists slapped that name onto a species just to make us think that it's bad. And honestly, we should just be calling them happy species. Because we got to talking on the Discord, and I was like, well, if someone loves doing something and gets life fulfillment out of it and it doesn't hurt or anything, that seems great. Like, by that reckoning, I'm part of a slave species where I'm enslaved to having sex with people, you know? That's and if someone were to put me in a situation where like that was what I had to do because that was my labor in the world, I think I'd be okay with that. I'd have a good time there. So yeah, making a species that feels happy and fulfilled by doing good things for other people and everybody appreciates them and they have a good life, that's just making a happy species, and we should do lots of that.
I mean, yeah, sure. Like, hypothetically, if in the most convenient possible world, I've got a sentient Roomba that loves cleaning my house.
Yeah,
Like, perfect. You're happy, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I think that we've got a, like, slave species, the term in this story anyway came from, June's imagination. And we can be sure that it's the least convenient possible world, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So, like, I can't remember if we got any examples, because I'm sure anything that he would have thought up would have been more creative than anything I could think of right now. But
Well,
like,
what sparked this was us talking about whether the thespian was a slave species. Because the thespian is brought in to do labor that no one else wants to do, pretending to be people who are suffering, but he loves it. It's his life goal is that he's like Clayface from Harley Quinn. He just wants to act all the time.
except he's better at it.
Yes, that too.
I don't know. I think the thespian might be not be conscious, but let's not drop the C word. I guess we could look at like house elves are the kind of other archetypical example, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they love cleaning, but they've got this like horrifying compulsion to it, right? So maybe you subtract that part out.
Yeah, like I mean, the it kind of reminds me of the non-central fallacy. Like the thing that is bad about slavery is the suffering. People are forced to do work they don't want to do, and pain is inflicted upon them if they don't do it. And oftentimes, pain is inflicted upon them during the doing of it because they're made to do hard, painful things. Like that's all the bad stuff. If people are doing things that they like doing and want to do, then I guess you can call them a slave species because they're doing labor for free. But like, I do this podcast for free, and I do lots of things for free that I enjoy doing, even though they might technically be considered work.
I think the difference is, and just to nitpick, is if you had to do this for 40 hours a week for no pay, you'd be like, okay, it's not that fun, right?
Yes, but in that way, I'm enslaved to eating food in the same way. It's something I have to do. And
I think you hate it.
I still like it. Well, I still like some food.
I mean, so like food for me, we talked about which you need, whatever body functions, in the whatever glorious transhuman future. I think I put eating on the same scale as like other things, right?
Okay.
Like I want to be able to enjoy eating when I feel like it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be like become increasingly uncomfortable and then die if I don't eat, right?
Right.
So it's but I mean, if what you're saying is that, take a perfectly happy whatever being, and it likes doing whatever it's doing, and it has no discontents with it. Like I think no one can point at that and call that bad. Like,
right.
So no, I think you're right. As long as it's cornered in such a way where it's like, no, they're actually happy. It doesn't hurt. And whatever, society isn't worse off for having it. Then yeah, go nuts. Like,
I think,
I guess I could think of when I said society's not worse off. Like, imagine if it was Westworld, except the robots really loved being raped and killed.
right.
I still think that would actually be bad, just because of the society that would foster that situation. Like the badness of Westworld isn't that the robots suffer, because hypothetically they don't. It's that it's the community that's like, yep, no, I'm going to go to rape murder camp this summer. What are you guys doing? Like
right.
That's the horrifying part of it. But other than that, if you're not doing anything morally deplorable, then yeah, go nuts. Super into it.
Well, I think some people would argue that making a species that wants to do your chores or, mine coal out of your mines or whatever is morally deplorable. And I don't think I'm convinced by that at all. That if something has to be done, like, planting and harvesting food, it's far better for the people that love doing it to do that. And then that's actually a good to create people who love doing that.
Even if it's like not a necessity, I guess like my house is at some point will need cleaning. I've never gotten it to the point where like it's so dirty it actually just desperately needs to be cleaned before it becomes unsafe. But that could happen. But no, I mean, I think as long as the thing likes it and it's making something better by doing it, feeding them, cleaning stuff, whatever. Yeah, super into it. Sign me up.
Yeah.
I'll take 2 house elves, please. The happy kind.
Right. Yes, not the bad ones.
All right. So from the audience, Griffin had a comment that you put here. Maybe there's some context I'm missing. He's talking P-zombies versus the thespians argument. His take on how a god can trivially make thespians work without them being sentient.
God predicts forward every action a person would take and just pre-programs those actions. The system appears from the outside to be autonomous, but internally is just hard-coded. You could do that, but this was mainly because people were trying to say, well, the thespians aren't really a slave species because they're P-zombies. They don't have any experience, and we protested that seems kind of dumb since P-zombies are dumb and can't exist, and I guess you could do this thing that he just said. God predicts everything that'll happen and then just puts a robot in place that'll mimic those actions. But also, you don't need to make the excuse that the thespians aren't bad because they can't feel anything because of whatever reason, because actually slave species are good when they're actually happy species. And the word slave is being used badly. So we no longer have to bite any sort of bullet.
I like how you included me in the royal we there, when in fact I was the one making the case last week that the thespians were P-zombies.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. But you made such a convincing argument to yourself that you just thought that everyone was on it.
Well, I guess, like, in a novel, the author can just say they're P-zombies and it works by authorial fiat, but...
That's more or less how I was picturing it. And, like, that's, you know, like, if all it really took was me imagining if God wanted to make a P-zombie, could he? And the answer is yes, right? It actually doesn't matter how, but there are 100 different ways that it could be done. You could also just make it like literally a P-zombie, like philosophers worry about. It acts like a conscious thing. It talks about its experiences, but there's just actually no lights on like that. Yeah, there's nothing. If it's logically possible, I think God could do it, right?
I mean, I don't know if it's logically possible actually, but as long as we're talking about magic, you don't need things to be logically possible anymore. So, I mean, you could. I read a great story of where 2 + 2 = 5. Which was, you know, a very short, fun little thing, but it was like, oh, I guess that could work.
That sounds interesting. I mean, I guess by logically possible, I mean like literally imaginable. Like it's not possible to imagine a world where like all A are B, all B are C. Like it's not possible to imagine a world where some A's aren't C's.
Sure, it is.
Not consistently.
I just did it.
I don't think you did. You must be a P-zombie.
Nice.
You show me how this works on paper. Although I guess I couldn't show you how P-zombieism works on paper either. I could pretend to. Anyway, we're getting deep in the weeds. Point is, all I was saying is that if you're God could just say, fuck you, I'm doing it.
Right.
But yeah, in the context of the story, I didn't really go back and read the part where he's introduced, but I do remember him being excited and saying, you know, here's my card. I'd love to work, you know, be an actor for you. You know, the thing is, I don't think it actually matters, but I do like the version of it where, like, if he's not sentient, then or if he's not conscious, then there's nothing wrong happening, right? It's Westworld where they're actually just, you know, robots.
Right.
If he is conscious, then he loves his job, and you know, being you know, they like, I imagine him hanging out in hell. And then it's like, he knows the Infernoscopes are coming on. All right, everyone, places, let's do this.
Yes.
And they're all just stoked to play the part, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's exactly how it's going. And I like that. That second image is much more fun than the first. So I'm going to just go with that.
Cool.
All right.
All right. And I think you have a final thought?
Oh, yeah. This doesn't fit with the title of the show, which is weird. But remember how I was harping on the period from fifth, or the note from fifth period English?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't make an appearance in the book.
It did not.
It was a little put out.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a big deal. Like it wasn't actually hinted that this would matter, but you got to admit, I think I made a compelling case. Like June didn't have any friends. Who passes notes in 2017? Texting is a thing, right?
It is.
You know, so that is such a although we think about when June was 17 was, you know, the idea is that this was Alexander Wales, an avatar, an imagining of him when he was 17.
Yes, but
Back
he did
then,
fast forward.
there weren't text messages.
But he did fast forward everything to take place in 2017.
Sure, but if he was passing a note, that made more sense when he was 17 than when June was.
Yes.
All right.
Also, I believe at least one person in the Discord hypothesized that he was going to kill himself for good the next day, so he was passing out his suicide notes to people, like saying, "Hey, I'm sorry," and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's possible. I think he would know that by passing out a note in advance, he would definitely be stopped. But maybe that's what he wanted,
Yeah.
I think that, if I squint, in fact, the fact that he was passing a note actually is a clue about who the author was and how this whole thing worked out.
Oh, because it implies that the author is much older than a 17-year-old.
Right. There's an anachronism in the form of passing a message via paper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to roll with that. This was, in fact, one of the biggest clues in the story. All right.
All right.
Closure.
At last.
Well, not quite last. We've got 3 people who need closure first.
We do. Those people are the narrator, the angel, and the devil.
Oh, solid transition. I was going to say Fen, Bethel, and Braven. So.
Oh.
No, nailed it.
Hey, it works either way.
Yeah. All right, 252.
Yes. So we get a description of Fen's heaven, which, after all the other heavens we've seen, this one actually sounds like a legit heaven to me. It's got beautiful aesthetic. It's got 2 fucking Fens. I mean, I love Fen as it is, but now we get 2 of them. She's got her muscular oiled masseuses that she always wanted, who sometimes take liberties with them.
Those wicked men.
I know. Juniper gets to play the Gods game, which is the most insane, awesome game of all. Like, everything about it just seems awesome. I want this life.
She got it good. I think that as far as the heavens, I think Amaryllis / June and Val and Fen all got like very similar heavens in that they could all have whatever they wanted like this.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think we didn't get to see much of like I don't know. I'm trying to think if I had to pick, but they're all so close to the same / different based on like who's there. But
see, I would not have both Amaryllis's and Val's heaven. I would have been like, yeah, okay, these are great and all, but like this heaven, I think, spoke to me, which I guess says something about my particular brand of hedonism. I guess none of them have really reached out to you that much yet. Maybe one of the future heavens.
Yeah, we'll see which one I like the most when we get through all of them, I guess. I'm thinking, like, Amaryllis's and Val's could be this if they just wanted well-oiled, muscular men massaging them,
Right, yeah. Everyone gets whatever they want.
Yeah. So it's not like it's a different heaven. They just have they've selected different things in the menu. And the menu includes basically everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can dig it. I mean,
yeah.
It's almost touching that she got her well-oiled, muscular men. Like, it's great because it's funny and it's comic relief, but like, it was just a reminder that like they talked about this back early in the story. Mm-hmm. So it's like a nice kind of like, oh yeah, reminiscing thing. And then, she was killed and still got the happy ending, all the way down to the well-oiled, muscular men. It's just,
right.
It's touching. Good for her.
It is. Yeah. It's not just a joke. It's something she really wanted.
And she got it. Everybody wins.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And June gets to play the best game ever created.
Yeah. It's just like Ultimate Sims.
Mm-hmm.
And it's competitive Ultimate Sims. I don't quite get how it worked, but it's like what all of those nation games, Civilization.
Yeah, yeah.
Except super high res, deeply immersive. And apparently the narrator sucks at it. So, sucks compared to the other 2 Junes.
Yes, is not quite as good at it. It seemed like a really fun game, and especially since playing the game sounds a lot like just running Airb, because it was like, try to make the best stories you can using these themes, try to make them happen on the world that's being simulated. I'm like, hey, that's basically what was happening in Worth the Candle for the past 240 chapters, where they were trying to make the best story they could, they being just Alexander Wales, I guess, because there weren't 2 other hymns. We're using the themes of, like, I don't know, coming to grips with loss and becoming a better person and all those stuff. That, whatever his 3 themes were.
Yeah. I think I put that in my notes when I took them. I was like, is this just creating fiction? And yeah. And by just, I don't mean like merely, I mean the butterfly meme. Yeah. Is this fiction?
Yeah. So, man, I love that he got like a game that just speaks to him on such a deep level.
Pretty baller.
Like I said, yeah, good heaven. The Fens, I'm reading now, the Fens had a philosophy, which was that you should extract as much fun from something as you could normally, then have assistance or modifications do the rest. And I think I like this particular philosophy because, you know, you don't take the shortcut right away. You do absolutely everything you can on your own. But then, like, if there's still some more fun to be wrung out of it, go ahead and take it using special modifications, because why the hell not?
I wonder, this could be a slippery slope to the bottom, right?
Ooh.
Where like you enjoy playing World of Warcraft a lot, and you're like, no, I could enjoy this more. I could enjoy this 1,000 times more for 1,000 years. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that just wireheading with extra steps?
I don't know. Is it wireheading with extra steps to go, you know, deep dive on a Arab-like adventure?
Well, that's different than extracting as much fun as possible from a thing, right? I think I'm just trying to nitpick.
Okay.
No, I you know, this is like maybe, you know, taking a year and a half to read a book and doing a podcast about it. That's extracting about as much fun as possible. And then I'll go through and do it again, you know, but probably faster with not a podcast the second time. At some point to try and just wring some more fun out of this, right?
Nice.
And it'll work. But I think if I were to change my brain so I could just do that forever.
Well, yeah, that would be lame.
Yeah, so I wouldn't want to. Maybe assistance might help. Modifications, I'm a little meh about. But
I don't think she meant it quite that extreme.
Yeah,
just like she couldn't understand the rules very well on her own.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I forgot the context. Yeah, the thing is, I read all of this last week, and so some of it's not quite fresh in my brain. But yeah, I forgot. So yeah, the game is like weirdly complex, and so is like her kid shows up, and I forgot he existed. That was fun. And she successfully passed on the weeb gene, so he's going to play anime ball for 6 months. And
awesome.
Like the game is ridiculously complicated, and so much so that narrator June has to like whatever Matrix uploaded the rules to his brain, and he's like, "Yeah, this isn't meant to be read. You're supposed to take in the rules this way." And so maybe she meant that kind of modification. Right. Like, okay, mere mortals are not meant to understand this game.
I think that's what she was doing.
Okay, super into it.
Yeah. Well, since we jumped onto Fence Kid, did you want to say anything else about that before I move over to this other thing I had?
No. I mean, she wants more kids. That's kind of where this ends up going, but that's just a fun thing to go on later. But
okay.
Yeah.
So June says, I think I would still enjoy creation if I knew that I could just get an assistant to do the creation for me. And I thought that was very weird because, I mean, could you say the same thing about sex? That I would still enjoy sex if I just had an assistant to do the sex for me?
I mean, I couldn't. Some people can. I don't want to kink shame, but
fair enough.
That's not how I do it. Yeah. It is interesting. I think I could still enjoy creation if I knew that I could just maybe what he's saying. And again, context matters here. I can't remember. Maybe he's saying that it doesn't matter if someone else can do it. The fact that I'm doing it makes me able to enjoy it. Like, like we talked about the difference between like, snapping your fingers and living in a new house versus building one,
Oh. So he's saying even though someone else could just snap their fingers and do it, I still enjoy the process of doing it.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay. That is exactly what I feel, too. I just completely misread that sentence because I'm a big old dummy.
No, it's confusing because the one before that, and I'm not sure if my reading is correct, he says, I'm coming around to Valencia's way of thinking that life is in the living and you shouldn't just be doing things because they're hard. And so then he goes on to say what you said. And I'm like, okay, so that sure sounds like he's saying creation is hard. And I shouldn't be doing it, just because it's hard.
Yeah.
I think it would still be worthwhile. And heck, we could do a split heaven where you can have all the anime or movies you want. And I could still toil away at my games and novels. Having the assistants mediate with preference clusters might get annoying, but shrug. I feel like it's been a long time coming.
Okay, I see. Because right now they're living in a mid-level heaven where people can't just snap their fingers and get, bespoke art that is just for them. Like they can't dolly things in that mid-level heaven. And he's saying that, you know what? Even if I lived in a place where you could dolly anything that you wanted, I would still take pleasure out of making it, even though I know that I could dolly it instead. And that makes a lot of sense. So Dolly,
I agree. For the uninitiated, is an AI that you give it a prompt like, I want underwater astronaut cats, and it gives you pictures of it.
Yeah, it's really cool. It has some limitations still, but obviously Far Future DALL-E will not.
And I mean, so do people, though. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's true.
It's
Yeah,
for what it, the things it can't do, are instructive and interesting. But it's like, let's not lose sight of all the crazy shit it can do. What's
Right?
funny is like that is bespoke art just for you, right?
yes,
And it's
yes, it is.
available to Muggles on Earth now for free. Not everybody all the time, because you need to sign up for like a wait list and stuff. But
Yeah,
it's a few months away from being available to everybody all the time. But
I really hope so.
What's funny is I don't think it was when this was written. This
Right.
chapter just a few months ago.
This chapter was like a year ago or so.
Oh yeah, he finished not long after we started the show.
Yeah, I think we were like 3 or 4 months in when he finished.
Okay, yeah. Still though, so 8 months later, we get an AI that can do the thing that is only possible in the high heavens.
That's awesome.
I mean, it can't write the perfect book for you yet, but
Right.
we're getting
Eventually.
there. Yeah.
I'm really curious as to what Chuck Tingle covers are going to look like once he gets access to DALL-E.
They're going to be thought provoking. Frankly, he should just do a picture book. There could be so many good options.
Yeah. Oh man, someone should create a picture book of Chuck Tingle covers.
There you
Like,
go.
I mean, right now they're basically stock photos of a model, and then they have like a toaster photoshopped onto it real crudely. Like it's not fancy, but it's enough to get the job done.
I look forward to seeing what the advanced art like this can look like.
Yeah.
So they want to have kids, the Fens and June, and the question is like, well, raising kids is hard. Do we want to just have our thespians do it?
Mhm.
And I think they consider but dismiss the idea, right?
Yeah.
But then it kind of raises the question of like, well, why not? Right?
Yeah, what they said, I think it was June that said this. Maybe I don't know if it was June or Fen, but you can have a Spian take care of your kids. But if you're going to do that, why even bother? And I was confused by that because I was like, "What? How is that different from creation?" And now I understood that I read that backwards. So yes, I am on the same page as them with everything. Because yeah, why? If you're going to have someone else do the work for you, why even bother going through that process?
Is he saying
Like
no?
the whole point
He's doing a Juniper. So he is.
Yeah, the whole point of having kids is raising the kids.
Yeah, so I think that's the fun part is, it's not like being hand delivered a successful, well-adjusted 20-year-old, right?
Right. I could go out to anywhere. Well, I was about to say I could go out to any bar and find that, but that's a lie. I don't think there's any well-adjusted human anywhere on Earth.
Well, there's certainly not a well-adjusted 20-year-old at a bar, because they're
Especially
drinking underage.
Exactly.
So you'd be meeting criminal scum. But
oh man,
yeah, I think so. That's
they're out pirating TV shows when they aren't drinking.
Oh, geez, those animals.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is fun. It was just a cute thing. It was nice to see that Ellen existed. I forgot, and get like some niceness there. Apparently, I think it says something about how his adopted parents were nice.
Yeah.
So hey, he got a happy ending too. And
we find out that Fen is the best mom ever, which is awesome.
What's really funny is I was going to be like, well, hold on, like let's not, break your arm patting yourself on the back there,
right?
And then she had said, let me see here. All right, well, there's a couple things. One, they were like, well, having kids, what if it's hard? What if we fuck up? And they're like talking back and forth. Well, it's simple. We blame Juniper. We're brilliant. He'll never know what hit him.
Right.
But so when she's like, oh, we're the best moms ever. I'm like, all you did was like hug your kid. Like, I get it. Like, that's huge. And you deserve props because this is a big, kind of a giant thing that you were carrying around. But then she went about to learn whatever Blurns ball the hard way.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that actually is awesome.
Yeah.
And, there's just the fact that she even cared enough to learn like the game is tight. So yeah, high five.
She's cool.
I do like how this ends because they're like, well, we'll need to get to a different heaven if we're going to have room for kids, huh? Well, shit, we're going to have to pay for movers. Like we can't carry all this stuff. Oh, but how are we going to pay the movers? And narrator, well, I'll have to look over the budget. We might have to cut back on those well-oiled men. Never.
I mean, there's a limit, man.
Yeah. At what cost?
Right?
Yay.
What's the point of living at that point?
Happy ending for everybody.
Hell yeah. I loved it. All right. Chapter 253, Multitudes, where you do indeed get your Bethel chapter.
Yay! I got a question about the Junipers.
Okay. Which Junipers?
The narrator specifically, but like I get why our Juniper existed. He was the
Mhm.
protagonist of our story.
Mhm.
Other side Juniper is like, here's this cool idea I had. I get that.
Mhm.
Narrator Juniper was the one, I guess, writing Worth the Candle.
Apparently.
Okay, I guess I was trying to make sure I understood. So that's actually really fun. You know, they needed the one June off doing stuff, but they also wanted him writing the book. And they toyed with the idea in story about like, yeah, maybe the DM is pausing the universe, having me write this shit down, and then erasing the memory of it. He's like, no, why would I do that? I can just have another version of you write down everything, right?
Right.
And he'll write it down in your own voice. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he is you.
Yeah. I was trying to remember, like, I was trying to figure out for a second, like, why the narrator, but now I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Bethel. She has to
Yes.
ask, you know, what is my purpose? And she's not content
Yeah.
with passing butter. So
I was literally thinking that when you said, "What is my purpose?" That is how deeply ingrained that show is in everybody's mind. That's cool.
that joke is just killer.
It is.
It's from Rick and Morty. He makes a robot because like the butter is across the table at dinner. And he's like, what is my purpose? You pass butter and he goes to get it. And then just later on, like at dinner, it's like still like before the credits roll or whatever. And or like before the opening scene. And it's like, what else? You know, I think he says like, what is my purpose? And he makes him and he says, pass me the butter. And then later he's like, what is my purpose? He's like, you pass butter. And he like kind of looks at his hands. Oh my God. Yeah. Welcome to the club, pal.
It's such a cool scene, like in part because it just acknowledges that like our purpose is to pass on our genes, and that's as equally fulfilling as passing the butter being your purpose, right?
At least you get to have sex.
That sure, it's that there is that.
Yeah, luckily
But
Luke's
having
nice enough to
sex
throw us
doesn't
a bone there.
Yeah, but having sex doesn't actually pass on your genes.
Well, having
It's
successful, I mean, I guess what your genes would call successful sex does, right?
yeah,
That's how I mean, sex education is everything I hoped it could be, but I thought that's where babies came from.
it's where most babies come from. It used to be a requirement for baby making, but we don't have sex to pass on our genes.
Oh yeah, we're adaptation executioners, not fitness maximizers.
Exactly. Anyways, we are getting far afield here.
Well, you know, this psychology talk's important because Bethel's trying to figure out who she is, and that's deep business for anybody.
It is. I think this is the chapter that I took the most notes on.
Yeah, there's lots to talk about. It's because it's fun. This is more like, you know, Bethel's circumstances are unique, obviously, but this is stuff everyone has to deal with. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Not a lot of us have fence problems, from last chapter, so it goes by fast.
The one of the things that is a problem for her is that all the special abilities that she had aren't really special anymore. Like anyone can do them now. She is disallowed from speeding up time for other people because it's not possible for anybody to speed up time in the heavens. The authority decided that would result in a race to the bottom and just made it not doable. And I think that's a really good policy, and I agree with the authority. Thumbs up for me.
I agree. The only major downside is that you can't do a long deep dive without ignoring your friends for the duration of it, which might be incentive not to do deep dives, which is maybe the point. And you can have like whatever thespian clones fulfill your social obligations or whatever, but like fuck, it's heaven. Like you don't have social obligations you don't want, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I guess maybe if you're the kind of person who likes bureaucratic stuff, you know, she doesn't want to go to whatever her HOA meeting, not the HOA, you know what I mean, the Save the People meeting.
Oh, right.
But yeah, but you know, she might send the thespian instead. Like that kind of makes sense. But yeah, no, it's
I guess it is a bummer that it makes the deep dives harder, but
it doesn't take them off the table. It's not like you won't be able to see your friends in 2 years when you're done role playing Middle Earth. So
right,
yeah,
and I think it would be weird if you could do that. Also, how much would you be incentivized then just to like live as much life as possible while no time is passing? I don't know. It doesn't matter because you have infinite time. No, it's good policy still.
Yeah, I agree. You know, you don't want to just like to go home for hanging out with your friends and then spend 1,000 years in Erb and then go watch dinner, with another friend or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's nice that there's some sort of whatever one-to-one time there.
Especially because like your memory of them would fade over however many years you're gone, but their memory doesn't change at all since, you cheated and left time and came back, and that would create a disconnect in like lived experience, and it would be like that episode of the Orville where 7 years ago Commander Grayson came back and they were different people at that point, and it didn't work anymore.
I can't remember everyone's names. I can't remember any of their names, even the captain.
I just recently saw that episode, so
nice.
That's why.
I remembered that one. That was the end of season 2.
Yeah,
that was fun. Anyway, no, you're right. I mean, you could change your brain so 1,000 years wouldn't feel like that long, but then you're like just this different person. It would be like the gap between Uther and June, but if Uther was 4,500 years old instead, like it changes everything.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Where were we? The powers.
Where were we? The powers, yes. We're irrelevant. The quote here is, "It was everything else that mattered. The pieces of her mind, the thoughts that she was inclined to think, and who or what she valued." And this it felt a little bit wrong that the idea is what matters is just what she thinks and what she values, because I think that it still matters what you can do for others. Since that's the main thing that matters in real life too, it feels like that's still what would matter in heaven. It's just that the big change is what you can do for others is drastically altered. Like you can no longer provide material support. You can no longer be their house or whatever, since they can have whatever house they want. It's now entirely like the only thing you can do for others is emotional and social labor. You can no longer do physical labor for other people.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I mean, I think unless they wanted to, you wanted to build a shed for them and they wanted you to build a shed for them, right? Like you can do physical labor for them, but like it's completely voluntary.
Right.
I guess Jorge is like woodworking, right? And is it just us being from Meat Space Earth where like if I was friends with Jorge and he gave me a wooden chair that he made, I would like it more than if he snapped his fingers and gave me an identical one?
No, I think that's because like snapping your fingers or just buying something, if you have a whole lot of money, it means you didn't invest a lot of your time into it. Whereas making your own chair from wood is a big investment of time. And I mean, in our real life where we have limited time to live, a big investment of time is someone is giving you a chunk of their life. But even when you're immortal, you can't experience everything all the time. Giving someone a chunk of your life is still meaningful, even if the limit has been lifted,
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
There's other things they could have been doing in that time that they weren't.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think that explains it. I mean, it signals this meant enough to me to do it the long way,
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, the cool thing is like she loses her, really dangerous powers, and then everyone else has all of her other powers. And so like the thing that made her, unique and dangerous is gone.
Yeah.
And then she's coming to terms with, I think she knows this subconsciously, but it's not until June shows up and tells her that like no one needs a house anymore. Like, you pass butter and no one even wants butter anymore. Like,
right.
So you need to figure out what else you want to do. So what is she saying? That it was everything else that mattered, the pieces of her mind, the thoughts that she was inclined to think, and who or what she valued. I think that, impacting other people is still super important. I think maybe she's thinking as far as building blocks, like for who she wants to be, right?
Yeah.
So because, the powers aren't a factor anymore, she's like, okay, it's other stuff. And you're right, other people should factor into that, but maybe she's working from first principles, just her first, right?
Yeah.
I think that is basically my thought on it.
Yeah, I guess so. I think it almost feels a little too inward focused, but on the other hand, you don't want to ignore yourself either and end up committing to doing things for people that actually make you miserable. So yeah, she's got a lot of figuring out to do, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely inward focused, but I think that she's trying to start from scratch. And that's really the only starting point. Unless they're going to start from another extreme, which is what other people need, I'll just be that, right?
Right.
But other people don't need anything from you. So you're like, okay, what do I want to be then? Then I'll provide that to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. She says that the relationships to the pieces of her mind was different for Bethel than for other people, because, like we have our past and our personality and our whatever baggage and our joys and hopes. She has like loyal recurve, Soskana, the diadem of focused intent, or the eternal golden braid. And
Aww.
I was like, "Aw, Ropey. I forgot about Ropey. We'll never forget you again, Ropey."
Oh, poor Ropey. I wonder if he can get resurrected.
I was thinking about that. Why doesn't he get to go to heaven?
Maybe nobody asked to resurrect him?
Maybe this is
Or
all
it.
he would want.
I
I mean, do people need rope
Maybe.
anymore? Did he like being a rope the way that Bethel likes being a house, or was he just a rope? Like, was he a rope, or did he like being a rope? Right?
Right. Huh. I don't know.
It's hard to say.
I wish we could ask him, but
But
doesn't
Bethel
sound like
ate
anyone's
him.
resurrected him. I mean, maybe someone has, and we just didn't get that chapter.
It's heaven. He's out there somewhere.
He might be.
All right.
There is an assertion made by Other Side June here, which I think is really cool. Like, he talks about foyers and what they're for and how they relate to houses, and like it's good shit. This is the sort of thing that we read Alexander Wales for, right? Like, he's always thinking about these sorts of things and including them in his world, and then like sometimes even telling us directly, and we're like, oh, that's awesome. Anyways, one of the things June says that if you took a person, just a person, you could discover his entire society, the entire geography, possibly from his body alone. And like, while I like that sentiment, I think that might be overstating the case a bit, because I mean, I guess for poetic intent, it's just fine. And I don't know why I'm being well actually guy here, but like, could someone figure out if I was red or blue or gray based like just on my body? Maybe.
You mean politics?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if they could see Bill Gates' brain Wi-Fi chip, I mean, the COVID vaccine coursing through your brain, then they can make an informed guess as to your politics, right? They throw in like some chemical analysis to see that you've taken psychedelics. They, look at
The
impossible to
exercise.
see. Yeah, patterns of exercise. The impossible to see like compressions to your skeleton from like having a gun on your hip for 10 years or whatever. Like, if you don't have that, then I think with like the way that I like to think about some stuff like this is like, rather than just like think of how would I do it or whatever, I'd be like, all right, could God do this without breaking the laws of physics? Right?
I think a good guess could be made. I'm not sure if you could discover like an entire society based on one person's body.
No, but you could get some
maybe.
ideas.
Yeah.
June's, I think he's definitely putting in some imagination into it, which is just something I think that he can't not do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, June could look at a body, see stuff that's definitely there, and then extrapolate a world from it, right?
Right. He's going to be like, I can see from the scratches on the bottom of your phone near the jack that you must be an alcoholic because you're struggling to put it in.
Right. It's not just that you're, uncoordinated. It's because you're a drunk.
Yeah. Yes.
Thanks, Sherlock.
But yeah, I like it so much that it's cool to overstate the case for poetic intent.
Yeah, and I do think that you could do a lot because like that they do talk about like geography probably, ecosystem probably, are they covered in sunburns? What kind of whatever skin material hide do they have? Can they breathe water?
You can tell a lot.
What's the contents of their stomach?
Yeah, you can tell a lot of what a person's environment is like by analyzing their hair. I've heard, because all that shit gets put into your hair as it grows out.
Yeah. I mean, so I think there's a lot to take in. That said, if you went to another planet, it takes some hard training to just grab an alien skeleton and piece together shit.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be maybe impossible. Might be really easy to see if something died by violence. And if you keep finding skeletons like that, you're like, okay, these things probably eat meat. Because people killed or things killed these things and presumably ate them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could probably tell if whatever bodies have been eaten. So if you found a body inside of another body, right, or a skeleton inside of a bigger skeleton.
Yeah, but people generally don't eat bones.
I'm picturing dinosaurs.
Okay.
Yeah, like big alien monsters. And
All
what
right.
kind of big alien monster would you be if you didn't eat your enemy whole, eat your prey in one big bite?
I see. Yeah, a really big monster then.
Yeah, gigantic.
Cool. So speaking of interesting things that Alexander Wales does, Other Side Juniper stares at Bethel with cold eyes, and like that's not the only time it's pointed out. And I mean, I really wanted to know if Other Side Juniper is like this with everyone, or just Bethel, or maybe just strangers. And then I was like, damn it, write more about Other Side Juniper, Alexander Wales. I want to know more. And he always gets me coming back. It's awesome.
I don't think he was mentioned to be like this at all when June met him in that bar.
Yeah.
They didn't mention this when they were playing God something.
Well, we didn't get to see him at all while they were playing the Gods game. Yeah.
Yeah, but like Bethel's the only person that remarked on this. And I'm wondering the whole time, is she just reading into it? Like, is he just looking at her? And she's like, oh, he's giving me angry eyes because he knows he hates me. Like,
yeah.
I think that she might have some, associations with any Juniper.
Right.
And she's like, fuck, he hates me for sure. And, he's right to hate me. I suck. Like all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm reading into her now or if, that's how it shook out. But he acts perfectly nice.
Yeah.
Like none of his behavior, is consistent with him giving her, the evil eye.
Right.
Yeah. I think she's reading negative emotion where there isn't any.
That could be. So Juniper and Bethel are talking about basically existence as a physical being. He's specifically speaking about how language arises from biology and relevant concepts embedded based on the material world around you. And he says all of it has changed now, but the people are still there, free from their tethers. Their shadows, free from the light which created them, and still casting shadows of their own. Things like, maybe the fact that people like to live in houses with walls and roofs is left over from the fact that there used to be elements that you had to be protected from. So even though there aren't anymore, there's still that liking left behind in you. And he even says later, there's absolutely no need to worry about material, process labor, or even the other constraints of physical reality. There's no need to worry about biological reality. And I hadn't thought about that until he actually said it out loud like that. Combined with Val's earlier assertion in the previous chapter that people continue to change, which, I mean, obviously people are always going to change as long as time passes, which, by the way, fuck time.
Wait, actually, let me put a pin in that. Sorry, because just I know I'll forget. In your fuck time position against the universe, do you not like character growth? I guess character growth, in a way, is the death of somebody else who didn't grow, right?
Yes.
But don't you like who you are now the more than you liked who you were, half your life ago?
I feel bad that person isn't there anymore.
Yeah, he's kind of there. He's there in your memories, but that's not enough there to do stuff, maybe.
Yeah. It's weird. I realize we can't exist without time, and that all the things I love are, due to time as well. It's one of those things that like sucks as well as is awesome. I find myself kind of wishing I could just experience all of time all the time, but
Dr. Manhattan style.
Yeah, but that's stupid hippie bullshit that doesn't actually happen in real life.
If you do get, if we get to our post-human or our transhuman, whatever, post-utopia future, if you go on a deep dive of being Dr. Manhattan, let me know what that was like.
Oh, hell yeah.
Maybe you wouldn't even necessarily do a deep dive, actually. Maybe I'll just try it for like 2 minutes, and that's all it takes.
Right, because you'll have experienced all of it.
Yeah. Whoa.
Huh. Very cool.
So sorry, we were talking about Val's assertion that people change over time.
Yeah, people change over time, and now that there's heavens, people are no longer constrained by bodies or reality or anything. And that implies that as people change without the context of what made them recognizably human, back when they were human, they're going to drift further and further from what we recognize as human. Like, I don't know how many millennia or eons from now this might take, but eventually there might just be thinking things, interacting and doing stuff that don't even look the slightest bit human or what we think of as humans with human thoughts and emotions at all, because they're so divorced from everything that, forced us to become what we are, which, I don't know. It's an interesting thought that eventually immortal humans will go to extinction anyway, because what they'll have turned into is not the least bit human anymore.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I don't know. There'll probably be remnants of whatever recognizable humans. I was going to say forever, but some record, some memory memory isn't lost. Like it is now, right?
The one last holdout dwarf stronghold that has stuck to the old ways.
It could be. I mean, I was trying to think of like whatever, define human nature, give 3 examples,
Mhm.
and then see if any of those could survive 1,000 years in heaven. But, just the idea of like houses, I don't
Yeah.
know if houses are human nature, but they're human universal, right?
Mhm.
More or less when they're available.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And that's mainly because, like, so I look at like mine, and it's because it keeps the bugs out in the cold or the hot, depending on the weather.
Yeah.
So it keeps the bugs and the elements out, and then it's like a place for my stuff. And
Mhm.
half my stuff probably is stuff I need because, like, I'll die without it, like food. And I was gonna say a bed. I wouldn't die without it, but life wouldn't be worth living.
Exactly. You'd want to.
Right. And then the other half is like, toys and shit, right?
Yeah.
TV, all that. So, if I could just have all the stuff I wanted, summon a TV at will and then disappear it at will, I wouldn't need to have one. If I could just make my body the kind that would be comfortable to sleep outside, or make outside comfortable to sleep on,
Mhm.
like I wouldn't need a house,
Eventually, you might not need an outside or a body.
I mean, I'd want something, just to put it, in the barest human nature of terms. What else would I have sex with?
Right. Right.
I need something, but just these 2 diodes. You just press this button, and that's how you have sex with it.
Or maybe you have much more complicated sex that involves spiritual permutations that we can't even imagine.
Yeah, as long as it works.
Dude, like, eventually the high heavens might be filled with, angel type creatures that we don't recognize, and the only humanoids left are on the low heavens where there's physics and shit.
I can dig it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny. But
Cool.
yeah, I think a lot of stuff would fall apart. But I think letting it fall apart, I was going to say organically, but whatever organically means in this kind of reality,
Mhm.
I think that's a much better state of affairs than just like getting rid of it. You know what I mean?
Then getting rid of what?
All the stuff that would dissolve over the next 10,000 years of being in heaven.
Oh yeah, definitely don't just cut to the chase. That'd be lame.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's something.
the
Walking
process
the walk.
is the fun part.
Yeah. What was that? Sorry.
The process is the fun part.
Yeah. The real friends or the real journey is
The
the
real-
friends we made along the way, right?
Okay.
And so, like, you can't do that if you just skip to the end. I guess you could just arrive with your friends, but
Yeah.
who are you people?
But then
How'd
they
you get to
wouldn't
my
be
house?
friends. They'd
Yeah.
be a bunch of strangers. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. One thing that Other Side June does say, which kind of bugged me, was that he's told June you need to find your purpose first before you can decide what kind of home you are. And it just kind of wrong-footed me because it felt a lot like telling kids they need to decide what they'll be when they grow up. Like, you don't need to find your purpose before you decide what you're going to be. You just look around at what's needed and then match what's needed with what you can or want to fulfill.
She found the burden of the heavens. Like, nothing is needed from you, right?
I mean, nothing's needed for survival, sure, but people still have, it seems, they still have emotional and social needs.
I suppose so. I mean, Raven's satisfying her emotional and some of her social needs through her thespian assistant, and we're not faulting her for that because it's working. So people might not need other people for emotional support either. Love probably, but I think you can't just be like, I'm going to be the person who loves people. Like, you need to know who you are to know that who you're going to best jam with.
There was that lizard person who told an assistant, bring me to someone that I can help with my penis, and that worked out.
Yeah, but at least he curtailed down the search space to people that he could help, in that very specific dimension. Like, it wasn't just like, point me at somebody who needs love, which I guess is kind of exactly what it is.
For the more physical versions of love, yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that, to me, I'm taking more of this whole Bethel chapter as like, you're right, because like when you tell kids, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like, I don't know, I'm 10. And like, I don't know, I'm 18. Like, why are you making me pick now? Well, because high school's over. Fuck you. So no, you just do whatever comes up and then keep doing that until you retire,
Yeah, I kind of feel that way about Juniper saying you have to find your purpose first to Bethel. Like, no, she doesn't. Go do your thing, and you will discover your purpose through a process of, trial and error and adjustment.
I think that's one way to do it, is trial and error and adjustment. And when I said, for now, when you're 18, just do what you need to and then keep doing that till you retire. I mean, like, keep changing to do whatever you need/want to do. No, don't necessarily stick with the first thing. Yeah.
Right.
But just jump around. Don't feel committed to doing anything either, you know? Oh, I've been doing this for 6 years. Who cares? Do something else if you feel like it, you know? But, you know, I think you're right. Like, find your purpose to kids doesn't make sense now, but I think it might if, again, like, what is Bethel, what problems is she going to go out and do? Or, like, go out and solve? What is she going to do to, you know, make the world a better place? Like, she's what?
By the end, I think she decides she's providing a nurturing environment for people who want that, right?
I think that's part of it, but she is going to be the kind of person who's okay with just doing that, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, a nurturing environment is different than a house because no one needs that. Like, she might be doing more. I'm not quite sure. I guess I'm trying to think is like, you know, if your ability to do stuff is obsolete, you're like, okay, well then who do I want to be? Like, what sort of person do I want to become? Like, I think that does become the, you know, if like, you know, you tell kids like, find your purpose or, you know, pick your future. I think that question is pointless now because you're putting a lot of, you know, burden on an impossible question. But if you had nothing more pressing because you don't need a job, you know, then you do have time to answer that question.
Yeah. I
think I'm kind of torn, you know.
I think it's one of those things that you don't sit down in a chair and think through to find. It's something you go out and do to find.
I agree. I think, especially for us, you know, as people, Bella's in a unique circumstance, right?
Yeah, but I think she's far more like a person than like a house because
houses don't talk.
How she's written. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think you're right, but like that's always what she wanted, and like that's not what any human really wants, you know. Maybe some humans want to be pregnant or something. That could be like the closest thing. But I think there
might be a human that wants to be a house. Don't kink shame.
You know, I don't want to put anyone down, but it's not something that is neurotypical as far as I know. But
right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that what I like about it, especially for her character, though, is because she doesn't like who she is, and she's been struggling with that since she became capable of admitting it. You know, she's not happy. She, you know, it's not clear exactly how far she came in the years that June was gone, but like she did pretty well. You know, she mostly got over her vengeance lust and all that stuff. But you know, she wasn't a happy, fulfilled person, and so I think she's like, okay, if I'm going to be happy and fulfilled, like, you know, I want to be, you know, it's heaven. I got the time. Like, I need to change who I am, and that's the big ask. That's what June's saying when he says you need to find your purpose, because it's like, all right, you actually are in a position where you're best served by going back to the drawing board and not rewriting yourself from scratch exactly, but you know, workshopping it. You know,
I guess I just think a better way to workshop it is to try it, because her problem right now is that she literally doesn't know a lot of things, and I don't think she can reason herself into knowing. I think she has to experiment to find out.
Or she can ask her smart friends, which I think is the takeaway, one of the takeaways maybe for her.
Okay, yeah.
But we'll give it some thought.
Yeah. Or we'll give it some experimentation.
I like it.
June says, the terrible thing about the heavens is that if we're miserable in them, it's our own fault. And I'm doing the whole, you know, is this a butterfly meme with, is this victim blaming? Because kind of sounds like you're blaming people who aren't happy in the heavens as they are for not being happy in the heavens, when maybe, you know, the heavens just aren't that great for everybody.
Well, I mean, I think definitionally with these heavens, like, they are great for everybody. And
I don't think that's true.
You what?
I don't think that's true.
Let me think about it. You're right, because it's not great for Grakstad, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's great not being dead.
Sure.
I mean, great. I'm great enough. I guess he consented to being not dead, but I wonder, like, there's something. At the end of the day, you can always just say, "Make me happy," and it just happens. You know. So in that sense, it's like, hey, we have the perfect antidepressant. It's here in this pill. Do you want it? No. Okay, well then politely, you're choosing to be unhappy, you know? Now that said, you're also choosing not to change who you are at like a fundamental level, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's more important to you than happiness, and that's fine. But that also is kind of like your choice.
I guess.
I don't know. That's coming off more ultimatumy than I meant for it to.
I mean, it feels a lot like, saying if you didn't want to be burned at the stake, all you had to do was convert to Christianity, right? Like, sure, technically that's true, but fuck you anyway.
I mean, except for this stake being burnt at the stake here is being made actually happy, right?
Well,
like minus
it's
whatever
being
someone's
put-
philosophical objections to happiness are.
it's being put in a place that may be antithetical to your values.
Yeah,
And I think it would be nice to acknowledge that for some people, these heavens aren't ideal and are maybe even worse than what they came from, but that is an acceptable cost for the overwhelming majority of living things to be much happier than they were.
I can see the point. Yeah, I think that some people would be made worse off because they can't, like, I don't know, engage in the terrible things that they love doing so much.
Well, what's his name that couldn't torture the guy that fucked him over somehow?
Well, the thing is, he gets to torture that guy, right?
Not really.
He gets to torture,
a thespian.
Yeah,
and he knows that it's a fake version.
Yeah, and they're not going to indulge him by giving him the real one. So yeah.
So that's shittier for him. But on the other hand, oh well, I guess suck it up because almost everyone else is happier. It's like Dobby. If most house elves may be extremely happy in their lives, and it sucks for Dobby that he's this mutant freak that doesn't enjoy the things everyone else enjoys, but also, I'm sorry, man, that sucks, but we're not going to destroy all of house elfish society because you're unhappy.
That's a good analogy. I don't know. I think I still sort of get where June's coming from. Maybe I'm just reading it maybe I'm not actually reading what he's saying and therefore missing the point, but I'm taking like another kind of angle with it, was just maybe more at the first point of like, you need to decide what you want to do. I think what's trying to come through here is like, you actually need to make the decision for something, or you can't make progress towards being less miserable or doing what you want, right? And you actually have to decide it rather than like letting circumstances dictate it, because there are no circumstances to dictate what you need to do, because everyone has everything they need. So it's not like, I better like hurry up and get rent money, like, no, that's right. No, you're good. That's not a problem. You are faced with the ultimate burden of having to decide what you want to do.
I guess it's fair as a way to motivate people to be more happy. It works that, if you're miserable here, it's your own fault. It's a great way. It's an okay way to get people to start working on not being as miserable and, maybe modifying themselves if they have to do that.
Yeah. But to take your house elf example, I think that's well received. Like, I don't want to say that like, well, the society woke up and like everyone loves cleaning socks. Like, you can press this button to become a person who loves cleaning socks. It's your fault who don't want to press it. Like, that is a weird and whatever murdery situation, right?
Right.
So luckily, at the very least, what's on the table here is like what seems to be like genuine happiness, not like lobotomy happiness. Like if you wanted to become a house elf.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to look at it from the point of view of someone who really does not like this sort of society at all and is being told, you suck and the society is objectively great.
Fair.
Even though, the society is much better than what we have on Earth, I think.
Yeah, but it's got its own unique set of problems,
Yeah.
You can't pass the buck of your like, well, I couldn't figure out what to do, or I got too busy. Like all there's a lot more autonomy, and that has its pros and cons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Other Side June makes the assertion that in general terms, the lesson of June's time on Erb is that we cannot let the bad taint the good. We cannot eternally hang on to misery. Which was a interesting take. I liked it. I don't know though. Is this the lesson that you got out of Worth the Candle? Or is this a case where, the lesson June is learning is not the same lesson that readers are learning? Could be two different things.
I hope every reader can identify with like the core thing June was struggling with.
Yeah.
So, but that's popular anyway. So people are getting other stuff out of it. And there's a lot of other stuff to enjoy, lessons aside even, right? Like, there's a great kind of exploration of this in the next chapter, but like maybe the point isn't to get a lesson. And if you get one by accident, that's just cool collateral damage. The point was to have fun. I think it's definitely possible that like June and Bethel need different lessons.
Hmm.
But yeah, that does seem like a not that bad distillation of what June learned. You know, that plus just like, I guess we cannot eternally hang on to misery. I was going to say one of the lessons he learned is like, you know, how to let go of stuff. But, you know, Arthur wasn't necessarily misery, and he didn't like let go of like everything about his memory of him or anything like that. It was just like, you know, you can stop suffering from it, but you can hold on to the good stuff.
You know, I think we cannot eternally hang on to misery. It may just be a really nice poetic way of saying you got to learn to let go of stuff.
I think so. And you know,
Yeah.
the thing is, you can let go of the misery part and hold on to the rest. You know, like this is a softer example than you know Arthur, but like, and it's still sad though. Like we had a cat several years ago, and she got sick and died tragically. It sucked, and it took us years, 3 or 4 to get, maybe 5 to get another cat. And the thing is, like, you know, you come home, and anyone who's ever lost a pet gets to do this. They get to pick up the food bowl and like all the sad shit, you know?
Yeah.
And then every time you think of it, there's like this pang of loss. But as time goes on, you're able to kind of like let go of that pain, but still be able to look back and be like, oh yeah, that was nice. You know?
Yeah.
Not, of course,
Yeah.
the day that they died or whatever, but the rest of it.
Right.
And so I think that's the thing is like, you get to, you know, so I guess letting go of stuff, you can let go of some of the stuff, but you don't have to like drop everything, right? You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. That's what I was trying to get at.
Okay.
Wasn't there also that time that Amarilla said something along the lines of like, you just got to get up, say that sucked, and dust yourself off and keep going? There was something like that.
That sounds vaguely familiar. Was it Amaryllis she said that?
I can't remember.
I mean,
oh, it was Raven.
Was
At
it-
some point, you have to say that tomorrow. We put like 5 quotes at the bottom of the note stock. Raven says, at some point, you have to say that tomorrow is a new day, feel bad about it because it was bad, and then move on and stop letting it define you.
right. Yeah.
Solid.
Good times.
That's a good lesson. I think the other lesson, and this is more what I think Bethel takes from the end of this, but it's okay to lean on your friends. You know,
Yeah.
if you don't know what to do, but you do, you know, trust people that you know around you, you can say, hey, what do you think?
Yeah.
And maybe actually take their advice.
That's a damn good call.
Um,
All right. June mentions the incident with the other June, the rape incident, and calls it a mistake. And Bethel says, I don't call it a mistake. Calling it that takes agency away from me. And that just had me stop and think for a while because it seemed sort of like a strange idea. Like, does making a mistake reduce one's agency? And if so, does that mean that you only have full agency while you're flawless?
I think is one fully agentic while flawless is how you put it. And
Yes.
I think that's one of the coolest rationalist sentences I've read in a while. I guess agency is a tough thing to pin down, right? Like I don't want to say you're less agentful. Well, okay, let me try and get my thoughts through this.
Like, I can be a full agent and do something with my agency, and it turns out that thing was a mistake to do, right?
Yeah, but then you might be less agentic in the situation than you would have been if you'd been fully informed, because then you wouldn't have done the wrong thing, right?
Yeah, okay.
So there might be something to that where it's like, I wouldn't have messed up if I knew more stuff. Like, so there's something there for that, but I don't quite know if that's where Bethel's going. I think that there's some agency difference to this too, but there's also kind of like a category difference between like a whoopsie and a fuck up.
Right.
Like, you know, a whoopsie daisy is, oh, I thought I clicked the lock button on the car and I clicked the unlock button so it stayed unlocked. You know,
Right.
A fuck up is like, I thought I turned off the stove and it burnt the house down. Like, I guess there's similar levels of actual, like the action is of a similar level of mistake, but I guess those are both going to be in the whoopsie daisy category then. Just one has a burnt house at the end. But, you know, misreading somebody's signals and raping them are definitely in the fuck up category that I think he wants to not put in the like, whoops, I forgot to, you know, turn off the thermostat before we went on vacation kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. I think a fuck up would be more like, I decided to do drugs and it really fucked up my my driving that day and I killed someone, which is, you know, different from whoops, I accidentally tripped and landed in some cocaine and some got up my nose. Like, that's one is a whoops, the other is a fuck up because you chose to do the bad thing, and you could say it was a mistake to do that, but it wasn't a whoopsie. And so maybe she was trying to say, like, don't try to blur the lines, don't try to make it look like maybe it was a whoopsie when it was a big fuck up kind of thing.
That's how I'm reading it. And there is something about, like, you're culpable for a fuck up in a way that you weren't for a whoopsie. I'm loving this terminology, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's a moral failing that much anyway to, like, whatever, fail to lock your car door or something. But it definitely is, if you hurt somebody, drunk driving is a good example of a fuck up, right? And so, like, I think that if she was just to put her big life mistake in the category of like, that was a whoopsie, like, there's no need to grow from that. Like, I don't need to take a lesson from the fact that,
Right.
I'm trying to think of just like more random little things, forgot to plug my phone in last night and it died this morning. Like, maybe I need to be a little more responsible, but like, that's not a huge indication of my moral character.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what she's going with there.
I think so too. And I understand, like, her being really protective of her agency, even to this degree, since, like, that was the major violation that she was repeatedly subjected to. So she wants to be extremely careful to not ever have anything like that even close to happening again.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe she's, flinching into or like whatever, firing you're taking away my agency gun a little early, but she's definitely primed to do that, and it makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah, totally.
But I think that she's on the right track, even if she, don't you be tackling my agency, even though he wasn't quite going there yet.
Yeah.
But he was definitely towing the line by saying, this is just a thing that could happen to anybody. She's like, no, it's not. It was a decision, and I fucked up. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Speaking of things that Other Side June says that are wrong, he says trepidation over whether you might hurt other people is virtually worthless. And I don't think that is even slightly right. I mean, unless the answer to hurting anyone is just like, if you feel hurt by something, edit it out of yourself. Then maybe that's what he thinks. So hurting people is a non-problem for him. But despite all my arguments in favor of soul editing earlier in the soul editing chapters, I don't think I would jump to it for every single little hurt. And, I think that some restraint in soul editing is good, and therefore some trepidation in whether you are going to hurt someone or not is good, because then either you force them to soul edit to not be hurt, or they're hurt by what you did.
I'm trying to think of, like, remember, because like there are weapons. June gave little June that sword.
Yeah.
What if he had just taken that sword and tried to kill everyone in the house?
I don't think that would have worked. Didn't the sword only work on whatever they were?
Well, but like, all right, so he brought a sword that would work on anything to the house. Like, I guess, he brings an ordinary steel katana. Like,
I don't think this could hurt things in heaven.
So that's what I'm trying to think about. Like, are people just impermeable to damage? Would like would the TVA show up and freeze him and take him to a whatever rehabilitation center? Like, so at some point somebody tries to punch somebody in the face in heaven, and either it doesn't hurt them, but being hit is still scary. Having somebody swing a fist at full speed towards your face and like you flinch before it hits you, it's still scary, to have that happen, even if they stop.
I suppose, but it'd probably get less and less scary in the heavens as you come to realize that it never hurts.
Realize that you're invincible. Yeah, you probably would stop flinching. I guess I'm saying is, like, you probably wouldn't let somebody just run around, not hitting people, but trying to hit people. Like, just because they're a nuisance, you'd probably stop them somehow. Like the authority would step in.
Probably. I don't know. Maybe the authority has like some roadrunner running around whacking people with mallets just to get them used to the idea that they can't be hurt by physical objects anymore.
Yeah, so there's probably something for it. So I guess I bring that up because I feel like physical violence is a lot easier to put my finger on than like or like physical trauma, whatever, right? So what if the heavens have a way of stopping physically hurting people, do they have a way of stopping emotionally hurting people? And I suspect probably not. There's probably
the impression I got.
There's probably some safety rails on like being emotionally devastated, like, ruined. Just like you're not going to be put around people who will do that to you or something. But I mean, that would take away your agency, and they're a big fan of that. But
I think
they wouldn't want you to be suicidally unhappy because whatever, somebody said something terrible to you.
I mean, I think it was explicitly stated by by June or the authority or someone that emotional and social stuff is not under their purview. That you're physically unharmable without your consent, but all that other stuff is still important and still going to lead to pain sometimes.
Yeah, I think you're right. That there's definitely, like, you can still say the wrong thing to somebody. That said, what would be nice, because, not to pat myself on the back, but I don't go around hurting I don't go around hurting feelings that often, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the event that I do, I can't remember the last time I said something. Maybe I said something that I'm not aware of that hurt somebody's feelings. But when it happens and it's pointed out to me, it's typically a misunderstanding. Like either I miscommunicated or they misunderstood. And the cool thing about Heaven is like, okay, we can have the assistants help translate my shitty vocabulary and inability to articulate my feelings or whatever, and they can translate that in a way that you can interpret correctly, right?
Right.
So I think it would be kind of cool to have mind reading assistants to clear up misunderstandings.
That would be great. I mean, not all of it's going to be misunderstandings, though. Some of it is just going to be stuff like I'm just not that into you anymore.
Totally. Yes, I'm just trying to, and I realize I'm spending a minute on this, but I'm trying to narrow the space of how Bethel could hurt people.
Yeah.
And I do think that her main concern isn't that she will intentionally hurt someone's feelings. I think that she is, especially just given her history, her main concern is that she's going to hurt somebody physically. And like that's not a problem anymore.
Yeah, I don't think she's that dumb. She knows she can't hurt anyone physically.
But that's a deeply ingrained thing, Like, so the thing is, I guess he's saying it's trepidation, which means that it's active. I thought that it was kind of like a worn-in instinct,
Yeah.
But yeah, this isn't that. This is her actively worrying that she's going to hurt people. I don't know. Yeah, I guess what would I do if someone said something? Like if someone said something really mean to me. John Mulaney has a good joke about that. Like teenagers suck, and they just like can find the one thing that you don't like about yourself, and just yell at you from across the street, like whatever, nice shoulders or something. Ah, man, that's the thing I'm sensitive about.
Right.
I think if I had that and Bethel yelled at me across the street, I would either change my shoulders or change the way I feel about my shoulders. I feel like that's an okay edit to make, right?
Sure, but what if you and Bethel were dating and after a few years she was like, you know what, I don't really like who you've become anymore. Bye. And then she disappears and never talks to you again, and you never get a chance to foreclosure. Like that would probably hurt you, right?
Yeah, I would Raven my way through a Bethel thespian that I would dump her, and then I would come out on top.
Yeah, darn tootin'.
Yeah, that is tough. But I guess maybe she's that level of emotional involvement to hurt somebody. I don't know if she's that worried about either. I don't know. I think I'm trying to do much mind reading into her specific situation. But the point is, it's like I think it is really hard to hurt somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe that's kind of what he's saying. It's not worthless, but it's it's way harder to hurt somebody now than it used to be, Bethel. Like you can take a breath and like ease up a bit, You don't have to stop. You can't stop driving completely because you can still hurt somebody, but you can take your eyes off the road for a bit because you're fine,
Yeah. All right. Well, June fucking becomes a hardcore badass and gets all my respect back again because he says, I would consent to being tortured if you would like. 24 hours to strip the skin from my flesh and my flesh from my bones. And he even says he's not going to turn down his pain or erase the memory afterwards. Like, fucking A, man. That is pimply chadliness. And I salute you, sir.
I was kind of weirded out by that offer. Maybe he just likes trying out new stuff. I'm going to be alive for a billion years. Might as well try this,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know why he would want, why he would offer that, other than like to be helpful.
Yeah,
but
he wants to help her.
But he just met her. He's looking at her with her interpretation, cold eyes. Like
he's a fucking Chad, dude. He's willing to get tortured to help a new stranger that he thinks might be a cool person.
Well, if that's the case, and this is just him, rolling up his sleeves and doing the most intense Mr. Rogers work that he can do. If this is what you need, I'm happy to give you what you need.
Right?
Then, hey, more power to him. And then you're right. I guess it just seemed like I would have been like, why don't we talk and see if I can help there first?
Right?
Maybe talk for a whole 10 minutes before I let you torture me for 24 hours,
I mean, That's why I'm so impressed with this dude. I wouldn't have fucking offered that.
The fact that it was like, so high on his list of like, here's things I can do to help, just makes me think that maybe he actually wanted to try this. But
well, maybe.
yeah, either way, if it's going to help, it's a win-win for everybody.
See, that hadn't occurred to me, just because it seems weird to think maybe someone would want that level of torture. But yeah, maybe he's got a really intense kink there.
And it doesn't have to be a sexual thing. It could just be like, I'm in heaven. There's no risk of permanent damage. Let's just see what this is like.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he'll throw himself into a volcano just to see what that's like.
Neat.
So I found here what Bethel says after June says, "You're not going to hurt anyone." She says, "I might, not in the ways I've hurt them in the past, but by making a commitment to them, I cannot keep." That I might do if I have no solid foundation for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So I can't remember if that was before or after he says the thing about trepidation hurting whatever. But anyway, so let's see.
Oh, so then there's this really cute thing, which I thought was kind of heartwarming. Once she allows her assistant to read her mind and to become a better assistant for her, and make her more comfortable, just do things for Bethel to make Bethel's life better. She notices almost immediately that her sensorium was functional with respect to this assistant, with the entire biological workings splayed out for Bethel to inspect, which I guess means that's what intimacy is for Bethel. And she just felt like she was all alone in a cold world where she couldn't see people's insides anymore. And now she can again for one person, and that's really sweet.
Her assistant knew that that's something that she actually liked about her ability to interact with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love when she calls her because, June, she says maybe, another time on both the torture and maybe the sex. And then she's just like, assistant. And it says, yes, a blandly attractive woman who popped into existence. And so this is the assistant that she's had since she got to heaven. And it's just like, yeah, look like a generic person. I don't care. Right. Mm-hmm. That's what she made this person. And then I just love how she looks at her and she's like, be the way I want you to be. Yeah. And then it's like, I can't read your mind. And then Bethel's thinking about this to herself. And this is just like the biggest kind of Bethel moment of first of all, allowing herself to that kind of vulnerability. Right. Mm-hmm. And she says that, maybe the fear was that the assistant would work and it would melt away all of her inner pain and hesitation. Right. Mm-hmm. That's the fear. It's like, well, this might actually solve my problems. Then if I'm not miserable, then I have to actually face the prospect of being happy. Mm-hmm. And that will necessitate a change,
Yeah.
And so I think it's exhilarating and awesome because it's just a big step, right?
Yeah.
This is the step anyone takes when they decide that they're going to change something about their lives for the better.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's awesome.
It is. And yeah, she does. The chapter ends with Bethel began to build a new home, which is great because that's what she wants and what she always wanted.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was a great way to end it.
Yeah, and it wasn't like okay, well here I've got this big sledgehammer I can take to your personality, and we're going to fix you in 3, 2.
Right. Yeah,
it's a very gentle transition, and it works out great. So
yeah, I'm. This is just a general note I have, but all the epilogue chapters are basically exploring what the transhuman post-singularity future could look like, and I think they're really cool for that.
Yeah, it's interesting, and they all have different lenses on it. I do, it just kind of comes back to that first sentence. The world didn't end the same way for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this one opens up nevermore, which is hilarious. Raven.
It is, yeah.
She's 10 years into her life in heaven, and basically they've got their twice yearly trips, and she's missed a few of them, and you can tell she's feeling listless, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's got this group of people. I forget what they're called. They're going to pass the time / find meaning just by finding dead people to petition to be resurrected. Because everyone already brought back everyone they knew, and they all brought back all their friends. The heavens now number in the trillions, and now it's just all right, well, here, this guy died 20,000 years ago in some fight or some war. I found his diary. He seems cool. Random shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it does beg the question of why can't we just snap our fingers and bring back all the dead people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Authority doesn't like that idea. The Juniper is talking to her about the Authority, and like an aside, a flashback, something. But Juniper says, like, by your logic, when she's saying that, like, everybody who has a life worth living or the potential for one should be brought back to life, just instantly, without questions asked. And Juniper says, by your logic, the Authority should have instantiated every possible person who has ever or could ever have existed. And Raven shouted, yes, exactly. And that seemed like an interesting thought to me, because, like, in a world of infinite heavens, is there any reason not to do that?
This is kind of a fun puzzle, and I tried to tease this out for like last week, and I think we touched on it last week when we talked about people having kids in the future, right? And there might be some restrictions, or some people might just not want to, or why stop at 2 and not 200? I don't know. There's something, the approach here in whatever June's Heavens seems to be something along the lines of like keeping life scarce. Maybe that makes it more special, but like it allows for more, I was gonna say more diversity, but it almost necessitates less diversity. But like, I don't know, it'll mean some rarity, There might not be a person, if you could pick 10,000 personality traits, there might not be somebody who checks every box, or at least if it's a 1 to 10 on every scale, right? Like,
yeah.
So whatever it is, like it might be like, oh yeah, there's no one quite like this, like the idea that, I don't know, it's kind of like, go ahead. Sorry.
Isn't that imposing artificial scarcity? Like, don't we hate that we want to be in a post-scarcity future? And why is that limited just to atoms and material things? Like, why not have post-scarcity of people as well?
I don't know. And I'm glad I thought of this, because this might be a good intuition pump. But why is, part of why Rick Sanchez is miserable is because he can always jump one universe to the left and, be home again, right?
Yeah.
Nothing matters because he's got infinite families.
Yeah.
In fact, there's something about that does suck out the fun of this family, right?
Yes.
The fact that they are actually irreplaceable.
Right.
Now,
or the fact that they are completely replaceable in Rick's world.
Right. And so that's why his family doesn't have any meaning to him. Like, I don't know how much as a character he's really consistent, but like the idea is like the fact that like here on Earth, our friends, we can't just like go out and find another one, that is exactly the same. You've got to find new friends, and they're different, and everyone has their own fun ways of interacting with them. Like something about that being a limited resource seems to be a great source of like life fulfillment. And so maybe we fix that and we just, race to the bottom of, no, we need to tile the universe with small people who can be as happy as possible. Right.
All right.
Because I realized that's like the utilitarian endpoint, like at least one version of it. You could just make one giant utility monster, but like, I don't know. I think, and I'm not sure if I don't know if I'm actually on board with this, but I think I'm sympathetic to it. At least I get where it's coming from if I try to build it up that way. Like, there is something special about having some things like that be rare, right?
Yeah.
Even if it is scarcity, and scarcity sucks. Like,
I think
isn't your partner special because there's no one quite like her? If you could go downtown and meet 50 people like her in 10 minutes, wouldn't it be like,
we'd have a hell of an evening.
I can't argue with that, but somehow wouldn't it make each individual one just a little less special? Maybe not. Maybe this isn't a good example.
I mean, I wouldn't have the memories with those other 50 that I have with this one.
Yeah, that's a good point. History is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Something like, I don't know.
I mean, part of the Rick's problem is that he can go one universe over and they have all the exact same memories as the ones that just died, right?
Yeah. And I don't know. There's something, though, maybe Amaryllis' ability to clone was related. Like, I guess I was going to say they didn't all get names, but they were all Amaryllis. But it's like they didn't really matter. They're totally expendable. But they were actual clones that were like eventually subsumed back into the Prime. Like, that's different than just like having 30 people who were just like Amaryllis, except slightly, one atom different. I don't know.
I mean, one of the things that this got me thinking about was Peter Singer's argument, which I know you're familiar with, but the one about if there's a child drowning in a pond and you can jump in to save it, but it'll ruin your $2,000 shoes. Should you still do it? To which everyone says, yes, obviously, fuck the $2,000 if there's a child drowning. And then he says, well, if there's someone on the other side of the planet whose life you could save by spending $2,000, isn't that morally equivalent if you don't send them $2,000, morally equivalent to not saving that drowning child because they're $2,000 shoes? And that's a bit more iffy. But if we do accept that, then what if you could save the drowning child by spending $0? Just save them. You should do that, right? And if you could save someone on the other side of the planet by spending $0, then you should probably do that as well. And if you could create,
here's someone on the edge of possibility space who could use saving.
Yeah, they might not exist, but you can make them exist, and it costs you $0 because there's infinite everything. Shouldn't you do that?
I mean,
I don't know. It's not quite the same because the person that doesn't exist doesn't already have a rich history with other people, which is where most of humans' value comes from, right?
That, and just even if they're not tight with other people, just an intrinsic want to do stuff and to live.
Yeah, they have a desire to not die, as opposed to the person who doesn't exist doesn't have any desires.
I think it is reasonable to ask, does the person distant from us matter less than the person near us? Mm-hmm. I think it's, aside from whatever the personal impact of, your own psychology and care, it's in your own sphere of care. I mean, it's hard to see lives over there matter less than over here. It just matters where here is. That aside, I guess, while it might make sense to ask, do people far away matter as much as people close by? I think it doesn't make sense, or at least that's a tough question. What isn't a tough question is, do people who don't exist matter to people as much as people who do exist?
Right.
And I think that's probably a no. I think
but if
there's a question about people who will exist, not who don't, but will. That's different. I think we do have an obligation to people who don't exist yet, because they're going to exist, like people from the future. We have an obligation to them to not destroy the planet or something, right?
Sure.
But we don't have an obligation to people who will never exist. I don't know what we could owe them.
But if it doesn't make anything worse because there's no limit on resources, and it does make things better because there's another healthy person in the world, I guess there's no obligation to make it better, but it'd still be good to make things better, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, where the whole society of mind of people being resurrected, what they think and why they're going about this.
I think I put this in my notes when I was reading it, but my one interpretation of this whole thing is that they brought back everyone who wanted it immediately because it's a nice thing to do. Mm-hmm. And then, they let the people like Raven have their little club and let them think they were resurrecting people.
Yeah.
Because they gave them value.
That's my number one hypothesis as well, that this is something to give people work to do to feel valuable.
I guess it raises the question, because I don't want to think that the authorities are deceiving people. So maybe they are actually resurrecting actual dead people, right?
Oh, I think they are resurrecting actual dead people, but in the grand scheme of eternity, if it takes an extra 10 years to resurrect someone, that's okay for the extra joy and fulfillment it brings someone for having a job for those 10 years.
And that's what helps to adjust them to eternal bliss in the heavens,
Yeah.
And so it's all right, if we have to delay the resurrection of everybody to help onboard, some of the people that were alive at the transition,
Mm-hmm.
I think that might make sense. Yeah.
I think it also helps to underline that the authority is very serious about its consent theater. And this is no, guys, I'm really very serious about it by forcing these groups to jump through these hoops in order for consent to be met in the authorities' eyes.
I don't think that it's consent that they're looking for with making Raven and her friends jump through hoops. They don't see. They see making people exist as a rather serious move, right?
Sure.
Even with infinite resources, there's still something about okay, this is going to have cascading effects that will permeate through the rest of eternity, right? In a way that me making you a sandwich doesn't, because the sandwich goes away when it's done. This person is going to continue to interact with everything forever.
Yeah.
It's a bigger thing. And so they're not just running around, making people left and right, unless they think it makes somebody really happy to do it. And so when Raven's random stranger X. They're like, no, you don't really care about that. And so they have to find people that's like they quote actually care about, right? So it's not about getting there. It's not about the consent there. It's about making Raven and her friends happy.
Well, I mean, according to the text, part of the authority's argument against resurrection was that it had no informed consent to resurrect anyone unless they explicitly said so, only inferred consent, and so no informed consent to read their minds to get consent.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. That actually does seem like a stretch.
Yeah.
And so, I think that they might just be saying that you're right to be obstinate, because that's a really good point. And good catch on that, because like I see what they're saying, but you're right.
Mhm.
That's bullshit. Like, if I didn't write down, bring me back from the dead if you can. By the way, bring me back from the dead if you can.
Totes, me too.
All right. Now it's out there. Any authority who says, well, they didn't ask for it, fuck you.
Right.
So, but like the thing is like, no, you can ask them. And if they're dead, you can read their mind to check see if they'd be okay with it. Like, you're not wronging anybody.
Let me caveat that. Bring me back from the dead if you can, as long as that existence won't be worse than not existing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I appreciate the caveat. Good point. I want to hang the asterisk on my request as well.
Okay.
But yeah, if you think that I think it'll suck, don't. But you're welcome to ask me. How's that sound?
Even better.
Yeah. But yeah, well, we don't have the informed consent to read their minds to get consent. It's like, no, that's a load of shit. They're dead.
Mhm.
Read their minds. I don't think you're wronging anybody by using your god powers to see if they want to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that it definitely is so they can have a fulfilling hobby. There is something. Didn't it say something about how some people they resurrected said no thanks, kill me?
Yeah.
So some people, I guess it's not clear to me, I guess, how they read their minds. Maybe there's some actual constraint, but I'm going to just say it's God magic. You can do whatever you want.
Mhm.
And they brought those people back purely as like instructive efforts for Raven and her friends.
I mean, it sounds like the people had enough people care about them that the authority was like, okay, well, in order to fulfill your values and make you not miserable, I will resurrect this person. But the person can always opt out, and then some of them do.
Isn't that really funny? Like, your great grandmother or something. Like, you get enough people together who like want her back, and she's like, "No, fuck you guys, make me dead again." Like,
yeah. You know how long it took me to get dead in the first place?
There's
ruining all those decades of work.
There's no bigger middle finger than saying I'd rather be dead than hang out with you people.
Nice. Oh yeah.
Oh man. So she brings back this random dude, and then she's like, "Great, that was fun. Okay, I'm bored." And her, you can kind of tell this where it's going. For me, it was kind of fun because it's kind of like a gradual reveal. Like she did kind of seem charged and energized about this at first, and then as she's actually getting it, you can tell it's just not doing anything for her.
Yeah, well, because we start out the chapter with like her process of getting into this and further back in time, and we catch up to her in the present when she's kind of burnt out on the whole thing.
Yeah, and her assistant catches on right away too. And I was like, yeah, this isn't making happy like it used to, is it? It's like, no, not really, I guess.
Apparently, in one of the heavens or somewhere, there's mind-meltingly enormous fields of wire-headed brains. Ones which have been purpose-built to experience optimal pleasure under different definitions of pleasure, stripped down so there were no memories, no personality, no identity. Which, okay, I mean, I guess at least this will get the wireheaders to chill out. They got wireheader heaven.
Yeah, I'm glad you grabbed that because that is pretty funny. What I liked about it was, I think, how did they... oh, here it is. Raven says that the authority didn't seem to particularly favor wireheading and would argue against it, which Raven appreciated. So I think this is some of Alexander's, preferences sneaking in, but I'm super on board with it, so I agree. Like, if I was making all the heavens, I'd be like, okay, fine. You guys really want the infinite cuddle puddle of orgasmium? It's over there. You can go in it if you want. But I'm not going to put a big, Las Vegas sign pointing to it. Like,
I mean, I believe everybody has the right to kill themselves if they want to. Just, I guess so does the authority. It just, weird that you wouldn't go the whole way if you're going to do that.
Actually, now that you put it that way, because I think about that once in a while with like, the opt out of heaven, eternity, whatever. Like, I do think that's an important ingredient. I definitely like the option of like, hey, do you want to opt out and just like be wiped and just be a pleasure button for like ever? Just have, you'll there will sort of be a you left, but it'll just be pure joy and happiness and pleasure, whatever. Like
Hmm.
that doesn't sound so much. That doesn't sound. It sounds a lot like Oblivion.
Yeah.
But it's an Oblivion where I'm constantly orgasming. So
Well,
like,
there's an Oblivion where there's a brain that's constantly orgasming. I wouldn't say it's you anymore because you're dead.
something's happy, right? I think those,
Yes.
I think they're basically equivalent outcomes for me.
Mhm.
But I think in the condition where I'm ready to just throw in the towel and die, I
Mhm.
think I should be at least interested in the orgasmium puddle.
At least there's one more quivering brain out there.
Right.
Okay. Cool.
It's quivering in pure happiness.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Date night for Raven.
Yeah. Yeah.
She just kind of like meanders into it when she's like, "You're right, I'm bored. Like, what should I do?" Well, you can go on a date.
Mhm. And the assistants, they give her that option. Raven says, "Fine, get me something to wear. Make sure I'm clean. Pick the venue. Like, just do everything there and teleport me into the date, basically." And I mean, I feel like a huge hypocrite right here because I complained about Val making up random stuff for no reason in the last episode with her spells, but this seems like what Raven just did. I don't know. It's not. It feels like it takes some of the ritual out of the dating, and I don't know why exactly that feels bad because it is kind of a chore to do those things, and maybe this is just like, oh, I old man yelling at clouds. I don't want things to change, and that's a stupid reason, and she can do whatever she wants, but. I've never thought of myself as conservative, and yet it would feel kind of like a loss to me if I were just to like suddenly be warped over to the date and not have thought at all about like what to wear and putting on some makeup and making sure I'm clean and all, you know?
I never thought of myself as conservative. I mean, I think you're not. I don't know exactly what conservative means, but I think it means more than being worried about being reduced. In some huge dimensions like that, right? Like you're not conservative if you like being more than just an orgasmic puddle, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
but
well,
this
I don't
isn't
want
even
to be, I don't
orgasmic
want to,
puzzle.
I don't want to be diminished, out of these experiences. Am I
Yeah.
conservative for wanting to hold on to those? It's like, no, you're just a person. Like, uh, I think, and I don't know, maybe that is some level of, I guess conservatism is a politically loaded word, but reservation about change, maybe.
I think that's the definition of a conservatism.
But one is a trigger word for our brains, and the other's
Right,
not.
okay.
It's just it's tabooed. But
Yeah, it's a good idea to taboo triggery words.
yeah, so I guess I'm just thinking like I think this might be analogous to she's kind of saying like Jorge woodworks, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of just saying, give me a canoe that I made.
Yeah.
Like, sure, here, you made this. Like, great, thanks, I love it. Like, of course I love it. I made it, right? Like, there's something
sometimes
cheap
you
about
just
that.
sometimes you just want a canoe.
And in that case, it's fine. And
Yeah.
maybe that's what she's doing, because actually, there's another lens to read this through. She's kind of depressed and doesn't quite know what to do. She's talking about like, oh, maybe I just give the old Hedonic treadmill a kick or do some priority reshuffling or whatever. But the heavens don't like people dying, so they probably aren't like huge on people doing drastic rewrites of themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she's just like, fuck it, I don't care. Give me something to wear, take me there. Like it's just complete resignation. Like, all right, you say I should go out and have fun. I trust you. All right, whatever. I don't have the energy for this. Just do it for me.
And yeah, that's actually really awesome because how many times are people who are depressed stopped by relatively small inconveniences like getting dressed, when if they could just power through that, then they'd have a wonderful evening.
I mean, especially when you're depressed and out of energy, like the slightest excuse to not do stuff, like, fuck it, man. I don't,
Totally.
I don't have matching socks. I'm out. Fuck this. Right.
Right.
Like,
we all have those evenings sometimes.
Exactly. So I think that might be what's going on.
Yeah.
On the other side of it too is that she's just there's I guess a third interpretation, which is that she's used to being like expertly waited on, and so even to the point of like picking out what she looks like. What should I pick? Something that you like, or something that he would like, or something that represents you. And she's like, make me the best version of myself, irrespective of what he likes. you know?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't quite fit with the like I'm depressed, do whatever vibe.
Yeah.
Because the answer to that would have been like do whatever you think.
All right.
So I think that maybe this is just like she's used to being waited on hand and foot, and like for some of us, like the joy of getting dressed up is fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's
Yeah.
like, no, I'll let my butler do it. Like,
That's a
you know,
damn good point. Like, especially if your time is valuable, like you don't need to go out and make all the little decisions like what conditioner should I buy or whatever. You let the butler do that because you have far more important decisions to make.
yeah, let them just buttle the hell out of your outfit.
That's right.
Yeah,
Buttle me hard, bro.
I buttle, sir. All right, so she's on a date with this awesome nerd who does bonsai trees, except different, and she does actual bonsai trees.
Yeah.
And it's just, it was kind of cute when that came out because they're chatting or whatever, and he's kind of awkward and rambly, and it's funny because she's like immediately getting endeared towards him.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a thought about this because she's like, oh, his rambliness, is that just me being endeared by whatever? Like, there's something bold about it, because people would edit out like the edges like that, right?
Right.
And so she likes the fact that he's like that. And then I'm wondering, if you're a basically baseline human, who hasn't been edited too much, if whatever, the avatar of God that you trusted a lot said, I'm going to put you on a date with somebody I'm pretty sure you'll really like. Mm-hmm. Do you think that like you would sort of be inclined to like them like extra fast and extra hard because this, Omega told you that you're probably going to love this person?
Huh. Honestly, I think it would depend how I felt about Omega. Because if I was...
Yeah, sorry.
Because if I wasn't kindly inclined toward Omega, I might be like, oh yeah, prove it to me, bitch. I bet I'm not going to like you at all. And like, I'd be less likely to like them. But on the other hand, if like I liked and trusted Omega, then yeah, I probably would be more looking for the things I like. It's like when I read cause this is on my mind because we just recently read the short stories that were nominated for Hugo Awards. When I read a short story, if I know it's been nominated for a Hugo Award, even if it starts out kind of boring and whatever, I'm like, well, this was nominated for an award. I'm sure there's good stuff here, and so like I'm more inclined to keep going and give it a shot.
I think that might be what's happening here. Like when I watch Why Women Kill, the first 10 minutes isn't captivating. I'll keep going.
Right.
I don't know what the first few minutes of Ted Lasso were like for you, but you might have pushed through because you're like, all right, Steven, said to try this, right?
Oh, that's a good point. Like, I mean, it was fine from the beginning, but it took a couple episodes to hook you.
Yeah, it doesn't quite hook right away. You're right.
Yeah,
because there's nothing really of substance in the first episode. There's fun setups for stuff, but there's nothing that kind of grabs you really well. It's like once you get really just any emotional investment in, right. You're like, okay, now I'm invested.
Yeah.
No, I think that if I, had somebody that could read my thoughts and I knew that they could also read my date's thoughts and they're setting me up with somebody they think I'll date really well, I'd be like, yeah, I think I'll probably just like them. I might as well just,
just skip to the end and start liking them now.
Yeah. Like in the future where I could literally turn that dial. I might not literally turn it, but I might metaphorically turn it in my head. And she's like, I'm probably gonna like this person. Let's just, let myself be open to that right away.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just like that because she's like liking everything about this guy. And I wondered how much of that was just like her being primed by, an all-knowing Janet.
Yeah.
And how much of it was not genuine, because it doesn't make it less genuine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not less real just because, it was authored. Because, it's still genuine feelings. They're just, helped along. This is this is perfect. Uther was her emotional dildo. This is just emotional Viagra,
That's a nice way of putting it.
As long as we can use sex-related terminology for stuff, it's always the way to do it. So
totally. And I that just got me to thinking, like, that lizard dude that boned Grack, like, thinking about it, he knows that he is about to be set up with someone that he can help with his dick. And that's kind of awesome because you don't ever know that, like, going into a new encounter, even someone that you've known for a while, you don't know that the sex is going to be great or whatever. And like, this is God setting you up with someone who's like, yeah, no, this person, your dick's going to really help them out. Like, that had to be the most fulfilling sex that he was walking into ever.
Maybe he does this every night, but they're all, very fulfilling, right?
Yeah. And it's like if you're pediatrician and you're curing kid cancer every evening. It doesn't stop being cool just because you've cured 10 million kids already.
You're right. That the once you pop the phone, don't stop there, right?
Yeah.
Man.
So they really hit it off, and they kind of decide to jump into an Arab kind of thing for a couple hours.
Couple years.
Oh, sorry, that's what I meant. Yes, couple years. I don't know.
Which you know, as far as first dates go, that is quite the big jump, right?
Mm-hmm. I thought that was really awesome. I really like the sort of like jump into an alternate universe, transhumanist ending things. I think that's part of why I really loved Utopia LOL. And I also think it's really cool that in the final paragraphs of Worth the Candle, Raven is going to start all over and Worth the Candle herself. It all comes back around.
I like that too, and I'm glad you put it that way. I think I can't remember what my notes said. I might have had some version of that, but like specifically, she's going to Worth the Candle herself. You know, like in the way that Alexander did for himself, right? I guess she's not going to third person author her own book kind of thing, but she's like, you know, drop me into a simulation and let me maybe learn a lesson, maybe not. We'll see what happens, kind of thing, right?
It'll be exciting and fulfilling.
Yeah, and that's going to be the primes on the machine, and you know, there's also just a fun thing, like again, you've got to take time off because there's no whatever time crunching, right? But what an awesome friendship building exercise, right?
Jesus Christ, man, totally. I would do so many of those, especially due to my whole belief that friendships are forged under shared trauma, you know?
Yeah, I mean, what brings people together more than saving Middle Earth together, right?
Right, exactly.
Boromir and Aragorn would never have gotten along, except for, you know, they were on an important mission together. And yeah, I think that's, you know, good friendships are forged in fire like that.
Yeah. Speaking of which, maybe we should go like join the Ukrainian Defense Force for a year or something.
I like the idea of waiting for simulation. It sounds less lethal.
All right.
And I also hope the Ukrainian Defense Force doesn't need to be around for a year because I hope things, you know, tire out before then. But
yeah.
I mean, it's funny.
We'll figure out something else to do.
We know somebody who's doing that, and it's funny because when he told me that, I was like, you know, it kind of makes me like, that's awesome. And I'm not, you know, this is impressive and cool. But what it makes me feel like is like, not in so many words like he's doing it, but it's like, I feel like kind of called out by the fact that he's doing this. Not that he's calling me out. And it's like, if I actually cared, I'd be doing the same thing, right? This is proving to me that I don't actually care enough.
Well, yeah, but you care about Rachel more than you care about that war,
but isn't that bizarrely selfish of me?
I would say no, that is perfectly human and honestly probably for the best. I've come around more to people should make sure their own surroundings are in order first and then try to start helping further than that afterwards.
And I guess we don't want to be a species of people that would all care enough to drop our lives to go run on, you know, some emergency, right? As you said, though, it's like I do care more about Rachel than I do about the war, I guess. I care more about, if I had to pick, you know, I never see Rachel again, but the war ends like without nuclear annihilation. Like I'd pick that one, right?
Well,
but I don't think I could stop that. I don't think I could stop that personally. So,
and also the chance of nuclear annihilation already isn't like, I don't think it's high.
Yeah, it's not. It's not where I'd like it.
Right.
But
yeah.
Anyway,
but it's not like it's guaranteed to be nuclear annihilation if you don't go or something.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this up. But
let's wrap it up indeed.
I do have a hypothesis that I could render. Oh, this could be my last prediction for the story.
Ooh.
And I'm not that confident in it. But
wait, you're making a last prediction after we've already read the last chapter?
Yes.
Interesting. All right, what is this last prediction?
It's a here's a maybe. I wonder if what's the next one called? This used to be about dragons.
This used to be about dungeons.
That's right. The sequel will be This Used to Be About Dragons.
Right.
This book is about dungeons, or is it about dragons? But it used to be about dungeons.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that could be it. That could be Raven's deep dive.
That would be awesome.
You know, I think it could be done in a totally.
See, here's the thing. Like the reason I paused for a while and was thinking about it and being conflicted because I do think that would be awesome and it's a possibility, but also Alexander Wales promised June that he was done with this world. And if he was writing a, you know, if he was writing Raven's deep dive in the story, then he just lied to June, which I guess is fine because June doesn't exist or whatever. But still, it feels like
it still
it's
matters that he
weird.
keeps that promise. June exists in our hearts and in Alexander's. I think that's all that matters. I think it would be a betrayal to June for him to write more of Erb. I think it is an actual, like, not technically violating the rules sort of situation of like, no man, Erb's off the table. I'm writing a story for Raven now, right? That is different. That's like, I'm not
Raven's
fucking with you,
Erb.
But she's not taking a deep dive to Erb. She's taking a deep dive with her memory wipes and everything to a Fantasyland, like generic Fantasyland 1.
Yeah.
So I think I don't think this violates the word or the spirit of that promise.
But we would always know that it's actually Raven that's actually deep diving from Erb.
But I think that we wouldn't know until some reveal, right? She's not going to look like Raven. She might, but she might not.
Right, but if we get that reveal eventually, then it'll retroactively taint everything.
I don't know if it'll taint it. Like I said, I don't think that him writing a world for Raven is violating the promise he made to June to not write more Erb. Like, it would be if he like teleported June to this world and it was like, I said I wouldn't write more Erb, not that I wouldn't, write more Bairb, Erb with a B.
Right.
So I think that would violate the spirit, but not the word of that promise. But I think giving Raven a world is not violating that. But, I would say there's only one way to find out. We'll have to read on, but there's nowhere else to go. Yeah. So maybe I'll check out the story and we'll see what it says.
Excellent.
There's always somewhere else to go, even if it's a different book.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how I would feel about that. I mean, I would probably feel just fine about it because I would love the story. Much like, I love All of Worth the Candle, despite my one thing that I dislike about it. But it still feels somewhere kind of in my heart like Alexander Wales cheated on June by doing that. Which is the stupidest thing in the world to say or think, right?
I mean, I'd be okay with that. Yeah. He Wales doesn't have a monogamous relationship with his characters. He has a harem with them, right?
That's a damn good point.
That's why June is all obsessed with harems.
Yeah.
Makes sense. We've done it.
He's like, I'm just another June to you, aren't I?
Well, as long as they're all on board with it, it's a consensual relation, harem, not the kind where you're cheating on everybody. All right, man. Well, do we toast?
We do. The very last lines of the book are, he extended his glass to her for an impromptu toast. To new worlds. And to new adventures within them, she agreed. And I think that's an amazing way to end the book. It's hopeful, it's happy, and I think exploration always makes humans hopeful, and that this brings that emotion up for me.
I think that there's a case that could be made that that's hardwired into our system. Carl Sagan seemed to believe that.
Cool.
And I agree. It's fun. If you want to be a little sappy with yourself every day, you can say this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You before you get out of bed, or maybe when you get into bed before you go to sleep. Like every day could be new adventures within, the world that day. Again, you have to be a bit sappy and squinty with it, but I don't know. It's great. And what's cool is, like you said, she's worth kindling herself. She doesn't know exactly what she needs or where she's going, but that's part of the thrill of being a person, Yeah. Yeah. It's
awesome.
It's great. And now I think I did say before we started the epilogues that, what did I say? I said something about either they wouldn't leave us wanting more. Or is that what he said?
I can't remember. I think that's what you said.
Oh, good. Well, one of us is right. Whoever said that.
Yeah.
So
the epilogues in general, I don't find like that memorable because nothing like that drastic or world-changing happens in them. But when I was thinking back to the end that I read and the feeling at the end of it, like the feeling of this brand new world opening up, and it was a very strong emotion how it ended, but it still left me really yearning for more, like badly. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like that's how Firefly ends too, and we never forgot it for that reason. But the fact that he wrote all these chapters afterwards as a sort of like way to let us down easy, it's like the end was the orgasm and then these chapters afterwards were like the aftercare and the pillow talk and the cuddling, like that is good stuff too. And now that we're at the end of it, I feel very happy that all that happened, and I feel fulfilled by reading these chapters and being eased out of the world slowly rather than just dumped out.
Yeah, I actually, that's how I explained it to Rachel when I was like, no, we finished the book proper a couple episodes ago. Now we're doing like the epilogues, and they're distinct. They're kind of just like the nice little bow that ties everything up. And I did use the aftercare analogy as well.
Oh, cool.
It's like, I mean, because it's perfect, and I've heard it used with other, like in other contexts where with authors and stuff. It's just like, yeah, no, we put you through stuff. Now it's going to be like the relaxing bit, before we get back into the meat grinder.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's no, it was good. You're right. Like nothing. I mean, kind of definitionally, nothing happens. Like the DM said, I'm basically going to fuck off, and kind of just these are all, it feels less like their actions are being dictated, more just like we're seeing what they're up to.
Yeah.
And
this is what life would be like without a adventure grinding DM pushing on you.
Yeah. And what are they doing? Man, they're having to forge their own meaning rather than having it shoved at them, one zombie Voltron at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. I loved it. The epilogues were, nice. It's like a mint after, nice mint after an expensive meal, It's a pitch meeting reference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was what was it? The Spider-Man Far From Home came out like right after Endgame. And the pitch guy is like, yeah, it's like one of those nice mints after an expensive meal, except this mint cost $160 million. Oh, a very expensive mint.
Nice. See, I've never really liked the mints after the meal, so that's why the analogy didn't work for me.
Perfect. Because that does more than cleanse the palate. It wipes it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Blasts that palate out of your mouth.
Yeah.
No.
Anyway, this was good. I had fun with it. I think I would have been fine if it ended at, then all at once I had the power I got on making the world better. Like all that this gave me was, like the intellectual fun of like, oh man, what does this utopia look like? And then just seeing how all the characters are doing. And, if you'd asked me to guess, how are they doing? I said, I don't know. They're probably working on becoming great, Like that probably would have been my guess. Because it's heaven. Like it would have been a drag if like, oh, I bet they're all orgasmium puddles.
Right.
But no, like, so they're not all immediately perfectly happy, but they're all finally able to work on it impediment free.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was good. I had fun with it. And fun with this whole thing, dude.
Yeah.
Heck. We'll do a final chat about it at some point.
We should. We'll let this sit and ruminate for a while, and maybe when I get back in mid-late September.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
One last thing. David Greer composed some music for me way back in the day for the Harry Potter and Methods of Rationality podcast.
I remember that. Did he do the Sprout fight?
Yes, I believe that's what it was. And possibly one other one. Crap, it's been so long now.
That's fun,
but
though.
He definitely did the Sprout fight. And he also did our intro music for the Bayesian Conspiracy, which is still going to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're still using that music. Anyways, he composed a piece that was inspired by Worth the Candle. And a few weeks ago, he was like, hey, here's the whole thing. If you want to play it. And I said, absolutely. You're an awesome homie. And then I thought, you know what? The podcast is almost done. I am going to save it till the end here and go out on it at the end of our last episode. So for our outro music, we will have the full piece by David Greer. Thank you for writing that. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, that's outstanding. I appreciate it. Reminder, do keep a check back in in a few weeks to see what stuff comes out. And this was great. Major high five. Alexander gets obviously his high five, but he's had one every episode. I haven't given you enough proper high fives for this. This was a really fun idea. It's been something to look forward to every week. This has been great. So, and I know it's been a huge commitment on your time too. And so thanks for. I mean, you knew getting into this roughly how long it was. And you knew about the size of what episodes we'd pick or what chapters. You're like, okay, this will be about 2 years. And we went a little faster than that, but
yeah, I had expected to read 2 to 3 chapters a week rather than the 3 to 4 that we generally did. Like I thought we'd be at this for another 6 months or so, but this worked out well. Our audience was demanding. They were like, no rest for you.
Well, it wasn't a cost I minded paying. If I got a little more every week, it worked out great.
Absolutely.
Well, cool.
I'm really glad you liked this too, because it was a great experience for me as well, and better than I expected it to be, honestly. And I think a lot of that is due to the strength of the writing, and also a lot of it is just to the fact that you're an awesome person, and this is a lot of fun to read with you.
Oh, you're too kind. This was a lot of fun. This is a group effort, and I don't know. This is good. I mean, I can't think of my vocabulary isn't as solid as yours, Alexander. So all I could just say is good and mean different things about it.
Yeah,
But I had a lot of fun, and this was a very meaningful and impactful adventure doing it this way, and story on its own. I think I've been trying to pitch this to a friend who's like busy, always has stuff to read or whatever. I think I'm going to sell it to him by saying this is probably it's if you ask me what's the best book I've ever read, this is the first one that comes to mind. It also has the recency bias, a recency heuristic, but I think it depends on what part of your life you're reading it in too. But
absolutely.
I think if I had to recommend, well, it depends on who I'm recommending it to. This over like Methods of Rationality or something. But this was really, 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 really good on a handful of different metrics. So I mean, I laughed, I cried, whatever. I remember Stephen Colbert wrote a book, and on the cover he quoted himself saying, "I laughed, I cried, I lost 10 pounds." And
cool.
I was going to say that, but then I realized no one would get the reference because it's not really a reference to anything.
Anyway. It is. It's a reference to Stephen Colbert's book, like you just told us.
A very, very niche reference. All right.
References, the jokes no one gets are the best jokes of all, right?
The jokes you have to explain are the best jokes.
Yes.
See, those are funnier because it really annoys people when you explain jokes.
See?
All right. Well, before we make everyone hate this, we should sign off. But, we'll be back. This is too much fun to let it go completely. There'll be epilogues. How's that sound?
Absolutely. That sounds great to me.
All right. Well, I'll see y'all then.
All right. Goodbye.